Welcome, everyone. This is episode 169 tee of the Warhammer 40,000 podcast, known across the internet and potentially around the world as Look Out Sir. My name's Dan, and it's that bit where I take it upon myself to introduce my co-host extraordinaire, my special chum, my extraordinary friend. It's Phil, everyone. How are you, Phil? What's been going on with you, baby?
Hello, everyone. I'm good. Thanks very much. How are you, Dan? How are you doing today?
I am adequate, my friend. The world has treated me majoritively well. As far as I'm aware, no one is trying to do me harm. My body isn't about to fall victim to any kind of exotic diseases, nor are there any kind of, interesting or elaborate events likely to occur in my immediate vicinity, which would, hinder my ongoing well-being. So, as far as I'm aware, Phil, it's mostly fine.
So it sounds like you've escaped the full Chaos Gods, so that's good. Good going.
For now, at least. You must always be vigilant, Phil, of the effects of the four Chaos Gods, for they are always ever present, ready to suggest a little bit of, fun on the side. Ooh, come over here and indulge in this delightfulness. I promise it'll be good for you. And then before you know it, my goodness, the things that you've invited into your life.
Exactly. A civil war across the race of mankind. No one wants that in their back garden, do they?
Certainly not, my friend. I mean, it's very kind of you to assert that I would be able to command the kind of authority that would create, a civil conflict on the scale of the Horus Heresy. But I get where you were going with it, Phil. You were bringing it back to Warhammer 40,000, which is the important thing to do when doing a Warhammer 40,000 podcast. But what specifically would we be talking about in this particular episode, 169 of the Lookout Sir Warhammer 40,000 podcast?
Well, if dear listeners can cast their memory back a couple of weeks to the Warhammer official Games Workshop Warhammer World Championships, there was a preview/reveal show, and we're giving our hot take on that thing that happened 2 weeks ago.
Indeed. The reveal specifically, we aren't interested in talking about competitive 40k, even though we do so often talk about competitive 40k, but we're not interested in talking about all of the surrounding dramas that were, the World Championship of Warhammer. Needless to say, the game of Warhammer 40,000 was the winner in some way, shape or form. Right, Phil?
One would hope so.
One would hope so. Anyway, drama. No time for that here. We're talking about the miniatures and also doing a bit of a roundup on the year, basically doing a bit of a ramble towards the end. But me and Phil do kind of do our annual check-in where we have a bit of a chinwag about how we're feeling about the pod, what we're looking to do, what we're looking to focus on. So that's a nice part of the outro, but then also there is other chatter in there as well. So effectively this week's episode is going to be us talking about miniatures and then doing a rather long outro segment and pretty much calling it there. It felt pretty robust. It seemed like the way to go. Don't you reckon, Phil?
A solid all-round episode. Yeah, it's all good.
Quality entertainment made manifest by 5-star reviews.
Come on now, Timmy. You've got your orders. You've got to do it.
But I don't want to, sir.
You've got your orders. Now get up there, get over that trench, and get me that 5-star review, and get it back here right away.
Okay, sir.
This week's 5-star review comes from where, Phil?
I'm going to scry the lands and use a pact with the Chaos Gods, particularly of Tzeentch, and say it is from Audible of Germany.
Tzeentch is a fickle god, my friend. A fickle god indeed, because it is, in fact, Audible of Australia, Phil.
Oh, you sly dog, Dan. You sly dog. You cheated. You robbed me. You robbed me blind.
I didn't rob you. I didn't rob you, Phil. Your Yeti Nano robbed you, unfortunately. For it afforded me the time to check our backlog and discover that the Audible of Germany review that I had originally told you we were doing was already done.
Oh, we had done it.
We had done it. So in a way, Phil, your Yeti Nano poo in the bed, did us a favour and saved us from repeating a 5-star review that we have already done.
I mean, I'm sure he would have appreciated it. But it is what it is, and good to know that we're not terribly bad on our backlog. Absolutely.
Although one of the things that I have been made aware of with this review coming in, we are going to have to shoehorn in an extra segment into the podcast this week, Phil, because they have left us an Instagram account.
Ooh.
So we are going to have to do an Instagram account review, but because we've already recorded the outro, we're just going to have to shoehorn it in between the miniature reveal piece and the outro piece. So we're going to give it its whole own section.
The wonders and delights.
Absolutely. Such is the wonders of the world. But anyway, so this is Audible from Australia. I didn't even know, Phil, until you told me that Audible Australia was a thing. But then I didn't know so much about Audible before now. Really kind of anonymous user who is Legatus_Brutus on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Very kind of them to leave us a 5-star review, which, as you know, Phil, is a prerequisite of appearing here in the 5-star review segment. Thank you to everyone who has left us a 5-star review. As me and Phil like to remind all of you, as long as there are 5-star reviews to review, we will continue to produce the Lookout Sir Warhammer 40,000 podcast. Though that is not a binding contract, it is at least a aspiration that we hope to achieve,
It's bound in blood.
I mean, again, I'm pretty confident it wouldn't hold up in any kind of court of law, not that you would even necessarily be able to bring a case to bear. But if you were, then fair enough, I suppose. Should it be that we decide to finish the Lookout Sir 40K podcast before the 5-star reviews run out, that's, I guess, a risk we're just going to have to accept from here on in. Isn't it?
You have permission to hunt Dan down for breaking his brotherly oath to you, the listeners, for cancelling the podcast before its time was done.
Not that we're doing that, right, Phil? I mean, that's not what we're actually doing.
No, only if we cancel the podcast before the 5-star reviews run out.
I mean, in all probability, we will be cancelling the podcast after I'm dead, because you won't be able to actually work out how to do it without me.
I don't know how this editing stuff works. Yeah, I can do it.
It's not that you don't know how to do it, it's just you don't know how to get it done quickly.
No, that's true. It would take me, the time that we record to the time it goes live to constantly edit it and get it out.
Absolutely. That is the Phil patent when it comes to things.
Yes. Do you like something done slow but very well? I'm your man.
I mean, I just prefer, speedy and reasonable. That's
speedy and slapdash is exactly. Dan is the person to speak to.
Flipping heck! I tell you what, maybe someone should, give it a go on the editing side of things. By crikey,
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Dude, I know you are. Anyway, 5-star review. Please leave us one if you would like to do so. Obviously, if you don't like the show, fair play to you for listening this far. I hope you continue to suffer in pain as you endure this torturous talking. But assuming you do like the podcast, maybe leave us a 5-star review, because it does really help us out. And that is sincerely true. So, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review, and you too could be like anonymous user, or rather Brutus. I always have to add like the weird Imperium style wording to these things. Anyway, long story short, you could be like this individual and appear here in the 5-star review section. Right, okay, things are taking their time right now, so let's rattle on through it. Patreon, massive thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon. We really appreciate it. If you would like to support us on Patreon, you need only head over to patreon.com and throw us a couple of bucks. It means a lot to us. It helps us actually continue doing this podcast because, it costs a fair bit of money putting these things together, and it's really great that we have patrons who support us and enable us to better produce and deliver this, what we hope is really unique and valuable content to you, our listeners. And then also, in addition to all of that, there is merchandise. It's Christmas, right, Phil? The holiday season is coming. Why not get yourself some Lookout Sir merchandise, eh? What says I love you more than a Lookout Sir t-shirt?
Nothing more. That is the pinnacle of a Christmas stocking gift.
Absolutely. A human being sacrificing, laying down their life for their betters is, the ultimate expression of love.
Yes.
Yes, because that's obviously what the Lookout Sir imagery depicts, right?
No, well, actually, it depicts someone saying "Look out, sir," but obviously not in time, because actually it's the officer getting killed, so it's not, someone diving in front of the bullets. So it's a bit inaccurate if you think about it. If we go really deep, they've said, "Look out, sir!" It's gone too late. His officer's been killed. There is a lowly, rank and file member of the army crying his eyes out that his officer has died, basically, somewhere out there.
I'm sure that's how it went. Anyway, this 5-star review has come via an anonymous user, and they've rated us 5 stars, Phil, in overall performance and story, because Lord knows we do a fine performance and we tell the best stories, right?
Oh, well, always.
Always.
Yes,
right.
for finest.
Life changing. Good day from Australia. I have been dedicated listener for months, and let me tell you, my life has taken a turn since engaging with this podcast. What makes this podcast so fantastic? I'm glad you asked. Oh, sorry, I missed out a bit. I'm glad you asked, son, because he gave a quite, abrupt exclamation point on that. Not only do these handsome gentlemen hail from English motherland, but they have knocked my socks off with every episode. Don't believe me? Since listening to Look Out Sir, my voice dropped and I've had a T-bone steak every night for dinner without salad. I've also become a better lover and my name put up for Australians of the Year 4 times. You want that kind of power? Then this podcast is for you. I started taking notes from each episode and used them as my daily affirmations. Since then, my boss promoted me and works for me now. There you go. I'm doing a terrible job of reading this, by the way, but I'm doing my best here. It's quite a lot of words. Subscribe to Look Out Sir and be the man you always dreamed you could be. The man your dad would have been proud to raise. The man your sons aspire to be. The man other people's sons aspire to be. Listen to Phil and Dan and be the man your wife/girlfriend wishes you were. Fear not. Every episode comes with a 3-hour final thoughts breakdown, so all your kids drooling out the side of your mouth have time to process the collective divinity of Phil and Dan's holy sermons. P.S. Here's a miniature painting Insta, Legius_Brutus, which shows my very first miniatures through to my most recent models. I've only painted Space Marines so far. Cheers, lads. Lucas. Good God, that is a long review, but a greatly appreciated one. Obviously, I will choose not to take offense that you have chosen to break with the format and put Phil's name before mine. Although, ultimately, alphabetically speaking, it should be Dan and Phil. And ultimately, hierarchically speaking, it definitely should be Dan then Phil. I know you're just doing this to get a rise out of me because, you think that by doing this that you're, subtly jabbing at me, that you think I'm the lesser. But I know where the balance of power sits, and ultimately I think it's incredibly disgraceful that you would choose to try and elevate Phil in this way. He doesn't need this sort of encouragement, everybody, right? He is my lesser at the end of the day. Don't try...
Come on. I'm only allowed out of the Tupperware box once a week, so at least let me have something.
I won't, Phil. That's how you get greedy. And you know how you are when you're greedy, Phil. Anyway, no, seriously, Marcus, thank you so much.
Was it not Lucas?
No, Marcus. Did I say Lucas?
I thought you said Lucas.
I may have done. I may have screwed this up entirely. It could be Marsus, for all I know.
Maybe that's why, you got second billing.
That's it. My dyslexia marches on. Anyway, the point is, Legatus _Brutus, thank you so much. Really appreciated. You're a great human being. And to elaborate on that, here's Phil.
Thank you very much. Marcus we're going with. Is that right?
Sure, why not?
Okay, well, whoever you are, Marcus or Lucas, thank you very much. Probably the longest review we've ever had, I think. It's definitely one of the contenders, that's for sure. Appreciate that we bring out these manly tendencies to everyone, all and sunder that gaze upon us. It's probably, my beard and Dan's chiseled good looks that cause it to happen, or booming voice at the very least. You said a lot, so I won't add any more to it just yet. I'll look forward to seeing your Instagram review at the end of the show. So, yeah, thank you.
More towards the middle of the show. But all the same, cheers very much. Thank you to everyone. Transitional noise. Welcome back, everyone, to this part of the podcast where we are going to discuss the events, more specifically the preview-related events of the World Championships of Warhammer, as brought to us by the Warhammer community team. Because, Phil, we are in no way interested in talking about all of the fun and frolics, drama-related silliness that comes out of the wondrous world of competitive 40k. We're just interested in the pretty new miniatures, right, Phil?
100%. Just, show me what you've got.
Show me what you got. I want to see what you got. That's the way of the thing. Although, one thing I will say in defense of competitive 40k and its ongoing efforts to showcase itself over the internet, fair play to that American chap, John something or other, John Lennon. Very good Warhammer 40,000 player. That much shone through. My God, I was watching the final games between him and Manny. There was a clear, at least in my opinion, level of skill on display from your boy John Lennon. He's very, very good at Warhammer 40,000, Phil. That much we can take away from the whole experience. Indeed.
Oh, that's good to know.
Indeed. I picked up all sorts of cunning tricks from watching those streams.
Oh, yeah. Push the rules to the max.
Absolutely. Anyway, that's not what people want to hear about. You can go plenty of places to listen to people talking about all that rubbish. To be fair, you can probably go to even more places to listen to other people talking about the stuff we're going to talk about. But you're here now, so let's get on with it, shall we? So we're going to talk about all of the reveals across Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, the stuff that's Age of Sigmar adjacent, but I forget the name of, Underworlds or whatever it is. I keep forgetting it. Underworlds, Heresy, Necromunda, Kill Team, the Old World, loads of stuff, basically, right, Phil?
Jam-packed episode.
Absolutely. And first amongst the things are the Warhammer 40,000 related things, which in fairness, Phil, actually had a relatively light showing, wouldn't you say?
Well, no, real big reveals, but some solid reveals, I thought. And there's one later on for Kill Team as well, which is still pretty good. So, it wasn't too shabby. It was pretty good, I thought.
Fair. But first amongst them was none other than the new sculpt for the popular Necron character known as Oricon the Diviner, I believe, is the name of this character. Never entirely sure how to pronounce it. What's extra special, actually, about this particular miniature, I don't know if Phil picked up on this. We were at Warhammer World yesterday, weren't we, Phil?
We were.
And this
we were
chap was
indeed.
on display. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw some Necrons. I figured this was one of them, along with some of the others I think they'd already previewed. Yeah,
He did look all right, didn't he?
He's pretty good. Yeah,
I mean,
not too shabby.
This Necron Lord character thingamabib maintains a little bit more of its original character, which is nice to see. They haven't quite done what they did with the other one, the Diviner or the Infinite or whatever he was called. What was the last one they revealed?
That wasn't Trazan, was it? No.
I can't remember. All I remember is that they kind of robbed him of some of his, characteristics. Yeah, exactly.
Charm.
Whereas this guy, relatively close, if not better, adaptation of the original character. So it's good to see. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't really wax lyrical about it extensively, as for all intents and purposes, it is ultimately a Necron Cryptek, which, without being too unreasonable to those who love the Necrons out there, isn't the most exciting thing in the world of Warhammer 40,000. But it is a good sculpt. It looks pretty good. It's a solid 7, in my opinion. Every bit a 7. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm just looking at the old sculpts now, and it's the same model almost. It's that classic case of you squint and that's the old one, and then you're now suddenly in sort of HD territory. We're seeing it in 4K, and it's the new one. It's like an HDified version of the original. It's just a nicer take on the sculpt, but the sculpt is effectively the same in terms of overall look and pose. So yeah, if you're a fan of the old model, I assume you'd still be a fan of this new one. It's not wowing me, but I think that's just some of those Necron characters on foot. Just, I don't know, they just don't really tickle my bones, my proverbial Necron bones. So yeah, it's all right. It's a solid, a 7's a good number if we're going to score it.
It's inoffensive, but it isn't exciting.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
It is. Also, they told us that there's a new Crusade book coming. I've got to be honest with you, Phil. I haven't become acquainted with the current one. The Tyrannic War has mostly gone unnoticed by me, but they are now soon thereafter giving us the Pariah Nexus book. So I guess that's a thing. Are you excited for Pariah Nexus? Have you even looked at Tyrannic War?
I flipped through it, but I've yet to read any of it. So I would like to. And I think actually, if this is hopefully a bit of a Warzone book plus Crusade rules for playing within that sort of the theme of Pariah Nexus, I think that's great, because I sort of felt like Pariah Nexus was a really fantastic idea introduced in 9th edition, but then woefully undersold and never really developed in any way or pushed like some of the other Warzones were with the Warzone books, because this never actually got a Warzone book. It just got the box release. I think there was the very first Crusade book that was just missions and literally nothing else, so you didn't really get much of what the story was all about. So I think this will be really good, and hopefully there'll be a lot of lore to sort of explain what's going on. So I am actually looking forward to it. I'll definitely try and pick it up. I'll try and get all the Crusade ones, much to your annoyance.
No, mate. At the end of the day, if you're excited and infused by the idea of engaging in these Crusades, good on you, I'd say. I mean, ultimately, I am not bitter and twisted enough to be annoyed by other people's enjoyment, but I don't really think it's for me. Although, that being said, there is a kind of charm to the design of these books that makes them feel more akin to the kind of current or standard line of book releases that my kind of, nerdy need to own all the relevant Warhammer 40,000 books. It's strange. The Crusade books that they made for 9th edition, because they were in those sort of bindery type book format.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different formats.
There's something like disposable about that book format that made them less appealing to me. Whereas this, I'm like, well, hardback, normal bookie wooks. Maybe I do need to actually be collecting these. Although I did just look, Phil, and the Tyrannic War book is £35. That's a lot, I would imagine, for a Crusade book.
Yes, I know. They're quite expensive. Wasn't that the old price of the Warzone books? And then at one point they went down to something like 32. But yeah, it's still quite expensive, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, I'll pick up Tyrannic War just to kind of get a feel for what it's about. I know it's been available for ages, but maybe, just maybe, I'll pick it up to get...
Well, have you got the Leviathan?
Oh, I do actually have the Leviathan. You're right, it's in there, isn't it? Yeah.
So it's in there. So you don't need it. Yeah, because I didn't get that one. I had to get the Tyrannic War book separately, which is an extra expense. But that's fine. Yeah, and that was predominantly Space Marine, so I assume this will be mostly Necron themed. It'll be interesting to see if they ever add in any other... Yeah, add in some extra stuff for people that aren't just Necrons.
Maybe.
I assume so, because it's for lots of factions playing in.
Well, of course, because they can't help themselves. They couldn't just go. Well, maybe they have. I don't know, because all I'm seeing in the pictures is Mechanicus and Necrons, and obviously Mechanicus and Necrons are the things that they are releasing next. So maybe, and again, I'll have to review Tyrannic War. Maybe Tyrannic War only involved Space Marines and Nids. So maybe.
Well, I think
this could be campaigns for specific factions. That could be interesting.
Yeah, I hope the releases they're doing 2 at a time, and the Warzone, the Crusade Warzone books are themed around those 2. But if these are the original, let's say historical in air quotes, factions playing in these campaigns, but you can swap in any army you want, even if you've got to fudge the rules ever so slightly. That's fine for me. I think that's the way to do it, rather than try and come up with some kind of narrative campaign that everyone is at, a bit like Vigilus, which had everyone but the Necrons, which is a bit harder to pull off. So I think, doing these themed campaigns with like 2 core factions, I think would work really well. You know, maybe we'll see Guard and Orcs, and it will be Armageddon. Maybe they'll do that as a crusade.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be something? There you go. I'm going to give this Crusade book a I don't know out of 10, because who can say for sure? But if that's the sort of thing you like, then this will probably be the sort of thing that you like. Actually, while we're on the topic of models that we saw at Warhammer World the other day, just because I'm seeing it photographed in the image of the Mechanicus, we did also get to see the new Stilt fella, didn't we?
Oh, we did, yeah. Not as bad as I thought.
No, worse.
It would be, which is often the case. With
terrible,
really
awful looking thing. It looked like the Great Gonzo.
I think it's. I mean, I think the model isn't as bad. I think concept-wise, it's still ludicrous, but I think a lot of Adeptus Mechanicus stuff is just ludicrous as concepts. But the idea that you're firing a big gun from stilts that would probably knock you back just seems a bit implausible. And I still stand by what I said. Like, I think elements of it work really well, like the gas mask, the gun, most of that part of the miniature, but the stilts just seem a bit over the top.
Fair. But yeah, when you see it painted in the flesh, it looks like the Great Gonzo. That's all I'm saying. Or Gonzo the Great, whichever one you prefer, or Charles Dickens as he was in the Muppets Christmas Carol. And
indeed,
given that it is the Christmas season, more or less now, will we have done the Christmas music, you think, for this one, Phil? Is the whole month of December Christmas music time, or do we save that for the Christmas week episode?
Ooh, I think we normally just do it for one episode, don't we?
But I might spoil people this year. We might go sooner.
Oh, well, fair enough. Well, just like everyone else, Christmas has apparently started straight after Halloween. So in theory, we should be knocking out that Christmas tree and Virginia
Well,
Bells.
this episode will have gone out on Saturday, the 2nd of December, mate. So I feel like we're pretty much in the mix at this point.
Feels suitably
Exactly.
Christmassy.
Exactly. We actually at some point should discuss our Christmas schedule, but we'll address that in the outro, potentially intro, if we haven't done so already. Anyway, next on the things that were revealed for Warhammer 40,000 was none other than Asmodai, the interrogator chaplain extraordinaire from the Dark Angels. That was me trying to say angels and then losing all sense of place. Apologies if that sounded really weird. But yeah, Asmodai. What do you know about Asmodai, Phil? Anything at all?
Absolutely nothing. Tell me what
Well,
he is.
essentially, right, in the world of Dark Angels, right, because there is this stuff called the Fallen and the Risen as well, God's sakes. Anyway, because, Dark Angels have this, grim secret about the fact that half of their legion fell to chaos, or maybe not so much half anymore, maybe a third or 1/4, the rest of which being forgiven by the lion. Anyway, the point is that because of the fluff that they had constructed to tell the tragic story of the Dark Angels, they were going around the universe trying to round up the Fallen, and again, against all odds, getting them to kind of repent for their sins, effectively. So they had this specialist type of chaplain, this interrogator chaplain, this secret order of chaplains who, as well as obviously monitoring and recruiting and dealing with all the day-to-day maintenance of the chapter, they were also charged with getting the Fallen, these, heretic Dark Angels, to confess for their sins. Asmodai is the bestest of those rather zealous individuals. This is a new model to represent him. I'll be completely honest. I really like the current, or I suppose now old, Asmodai sculpt. But I also really like this one as well. I think there's a lot of really lovely things to like about it. There are definitely wins and losses in this particular sculpt. I will say from the outset that the version of Asmodai unhooded is not nearly as awesome as the version of him with his hood over his helm. Equally, I will probably favour the backpack that doesn't have the large smoky plumage coming out from it, because I think that's maybe a touch too much, although it is growing on me, to be fair. But those of you who don't already know, Asmodai always used to come with a rather fancy sword and Crozius, and actually the pose of Asmodai here is very heavily based on old artwork of the character. So, it's really nice that they've gone back to that. He does still also seemingly carry his old relic weapon, which I've forgotten the name of now, but it was really hilarious in editions of olds, because he used to basically have a weapon that was basically like a pain stick, effectively. He was like, I've got this stick here, and I'll hit you with it, and it bloody well hurts. And that was the kind of general premise of it. And in rules, it was like an AP0, strength 4, 1 attack melee weapon. But if you caused an unsaved wound, so if your opponent failed to save against this one wound, it would kill you outright. So it didn't matter if you had 1,000,000 wounds or one. One save failed against this weapon would see you dead, which was always hilarious. But again, never worked in practice as much as you'd hoped it might have done in principle. Overall, I'll give Asmodai. Asmodai's in an 8 territory, as far as I'm concerned. Good, but not great. Pretty happy with it overall. What's your vibe on Asmodai, Phil?
The polar opposite.
Oh, I like that.
I think you've been far too generous. I would go to say it's the worst miniature that they've previewed as part of these reveals. I really don't like it. Now, I'm going to preface it, as I always say, it could just be the sort of flat nature to the photography, and that once you see it a bit more three-dimensional, perhaps it will look better. As you say, it's based on some old artwork by Mark Gibbons. The artwork's really good, and actually, if you sort of look at it side by side, they've actually changed quite a lot of it. Whereas with the Mephiston one, I felt like it was pretty faithful to the artwork. So obviously, like the sword design has changed. They've actually, and this is a bit I don't particularly like on the new one, is that they've given him like extra capes going over his shoulder pauldrons, whereas I think in the original artwork it's just the pauldrons on its own, and that gives it a bit more of a sort of a raw, menacing look to him. There's just like little elements that I don't like the oversized giant halo and his sort of necklace thing, and the pose I don't think works particularly well, unlike in the artwork where you can always be a bit more, use your artistic license, right, to have a pose that looks kind of interesting and dynamic but doesn't actually physically work in actuality. The smoke I don't have a problem with particularly. I think it looks quite kind of cool, but I understand lots of people don't like smoke, so actually I think it's really clever that they've started to do these like optional bits to model. So it's like, yeah, if you don't like the smoke, you can take it off. I think that's really clever. It's quite cool that you've got a sort of hoodless version of the head, but again, I don't particularly like the helmet underneath. I'm just not a fan of it, unfortunately. I sort of wish I did. I do like the smoke effect as it comes out the backpack, like it's kind of coming from the eyes of the skulls that make up his backpack vents. I think that's really cool. But yeah, just overall, I just don't like some of the elements to it, unfortunately.
That's totally fair enough, mate. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I think my initial reception to it was possibly more negative than the credit I'm giving it now. I do think that, the thing that's really interesting with these sculpts now is how much more kind of cartoony they are making these characters kind of appear. It definitely feels like some of the more kind of blunt functionality of the characters or the sculpts is giving way to this more kind of expressive, more stylized visual, which is very much what this is, and I'm really intrigued to see how this guy sits alongside Azrael, for example. The Azrael sculpt was really, really underwhelming. I prefer this to the Azrael sculpt, but the thing about the Azrael sculpt, I suppose, is that it definitely, I don't know, I'd be very interested to see the two of them alongside each other and to get a feel for what that kind of overall kind of synergy is between this character and Azrael. And also, I'm really hopeful that, Asmodai is not the only Dark Angel character that we're seeing redone. I would love to see Ezekiel, the chief librarian. I'd love to see him redone. And I definitely am keen to see what they might do with Samael of the Raven Wing. I think Samael would be a really good one to focus on. Obviously, Belial would be a nice one to do, but the thing is with Belial is he's basically a Terminator captain and probably isn't necessarily needing prioritizing should they have limited capacity for this upcoming release. But I mean, look, this is the thing. I think there's a lot of really nice, charming aspects to it. I'm pretty sure when you'll see it in its three-dimensional form, it will definitely hold up. There's a lot of elements to it in terms of the posing and other things that kind of harken back to the Helbrecht sculpt that they did, but nowhere near as brilliant in execution. Helbrecht is, again, still in my opinion, top banana when it comes to Space Marine hero sculpts. But yeah, this while hooded is a pretty decent looking mini in my opinion. But I absolutely understand the reservation, I suppose. But
I mean, I'm not the Games Workshop target demographic for Dark Angels. I have no interest in buying Dark Angels, so I am obviously somewhat biased in my opinion. So if it was a faction I liked a bit more, maybe I would be a bit more inclined to like it. So I can understand why you would like it and maybe I don't, because I'm not innately drawn to whatever it is that makes you think this is a good mini.
Indeed. Keeping it with Dark Angels, next along are the Deathwing Knights, which is, I'll be honest, very surprising. The now seemingly soon to be discontinued Deathwing Knight kit is one of the newest Space Marine Terminator kits in circulation, right? So the Deathwing Terminator box set may be the newest Terminator box set that you could purchase prior to the re-release of the main Terminator squad that they've just done. And then obviously the subsequent release of this. So intriguing to see that the Deathwing Knights have been replaced. I think literally, if I'm not mistaken, I think Deathwing Knights might have come out in early 2014. I could be wrong about that, but I'm fairly certain it was 2013 or 2014. So yeah, I mean, by the standards of modern-ish Games Workshop plastics, it's quite interesting to see a kit that has existed for a relatively short period of time by other GW standards getting a redo.
I mean, it's not the first time they've done it. Obviously, things like the Gravis Captain and the Intercessor Ancients were even much more recent than that and effectively got redone. I think slightly different reasons, maybe, in terms of at least the Ancient, because that came in terms of like a multi-part plastic sprue with other things on, whereas the Gravis Captain, I think, was always... Oh, actually, was he on a... Maybe he wasn't on his own sprue.
No, Gravis Captain... Well. Yeah, Gravis Captain came in the original Dark Imperium, didn't he?
Yeah, so he would have been on sprues with other things. So I think that was maybe more the reason, but I think there was a good reason to redo that sculpt as well, because it wasn't massively universally loved.
No.
So yeah, that is interesting that this, if it hasn't been around for long, has been redone. What is your take on these minis?
So first and foremost, it's really interesting that they've expanded the weapon loadout. So prior to this box set existing, the Deathwing Knight was only able to go to battle with a mace of absolution and a flail of the unforgiven. And now we are seeing that they are able to wield what I'm assuming is some kind of relic blade or, mastercrafted power sword. You are still able to take them with like power mauls, which is, I guess, akin to what the old maces were, except the maces were a lot more, I suppose, baroque, a little bit more, over the top in their design. So they were large, kind of almost like Bommy Knocker-esque kind of designs. Whereas these are just, the new ones that they're showing modeled here are very much just kind of power mauls. I think it's relatively evident that Games Workshop, in their ways, will have it that when this box set comes out, from a rules perspective, the power sword variant is going to be the one that you want, because Games Workshop have a horrible habit of essentially going, you've got the old ones with their power mauls. Yeah, they can still take power mauls, but they're not that great. What you really want are these power swords. They're the things that everyone's raving about, so as to potentially incentivize people. But look, I think here's the thing. There's a couple of interesting variants to the kits themselves. I think ultimately the new Terminator sculpts are amazing, and I still stand by that. I think the thing that the Terminator sculpts do that you don't even really realize until you see them, and it is rare that you see them, which is a shame because they're such an amazing kit. It's the scale of the things that is just utterly unbelievable. Like, they are such large, bulky, tactical dreadnought armor-esque entities now. They're just so much more than the old plastics in terms of their scale and their size, I suppose. Their presence is just amazing. These sculpts are not as, beloved to me as the current kind of redesign of Terminator kits. I'm not utterly on board with the helmet change. I kind of understand or can kind of sympathize with what I think they're trying to go for here. But when I look at it, it gives me more of a kind of Grey Knight aesthetic, which I suppose is fine, but it is quite different. I would have loved to have seen them kind of maintain the hooded, kind of barefaced warrior look. That is an option. So maybe, when we see more versions of these with those kind of hooded heads, they're going to look stronger. But, they're still going to be amazing Terminator kits. I'm still a fan of them overall. I think I would just put them around a kind of 8 out of 10 kind of rating because, I think although they are cool, I don't think they kind of carry off the aesthetic and the look nearly as well as the current Deathwing Knights. I think the current Deathwing Knights are just a little bit more, a little bit stronger in their execution of that kind of aesthetic, whereas these, don't really feel quite as succinct, I suppose. But they do still look amazing. I am still excited about them. I'm definitely going to pick some up because, I'm very keen on the idea of revamping my Deathwing army. So I do like them overall, but I think, it's not quite as wowed me as I was hoping for. What's your vibe on it, mate?
When I first saw them at the reveals, I think I was slightly underwhelmed. And then looking at them now on the website, especially with the little carousel at the top, where they've got some slightly different ones, they've kind of grown on me slightly, I would say. You made some good points. I think the helmet's a little bit odd, a bit more Grey Knight in style. I think I do prefer them, though, more than the hooded versions. The hooded versions seem a bit silly to me, but, I'm not a Dark Angels player, so I'm not into hoods, I guess. If you're into hoods, this is a good unit for you, I guess. The sword option, I think, is really cool, and they were sort of, I assume, justifying it by saying the sword is the symbol of the Dark Angels, so, it seems appropriate that these would have swords as well. Like, that's a great sort of thematic through line, I guess, for these units. That's cool. I like the design of the shields. I think they're really cool. I kind of like the model that's got the bone colour on the shield rather than the green. I think I actually prefer him, especially, more so than how the other ones look. I don't know if that's just sort of more focus on the bone colour rather than the green. And I think the hooded guys with the green hoods, plus the green robes and the green shields, just seems a bit too much of a colour clash for my personal taste. The maces, I think, actually look really cool. I do like them. I think the old ones were maybe a bit over the top. The little guy, that's normally stuff I would go mad for. And he does sort of seem cool, but he sort of seems really weirdly proportioned, and his robes are just too big for him. So again, I don't know. I feel like that could have been just a little bit better somehow. And then it would have been like, I'd have loved to have picked him up for my general collection of acolytes and attendants to my Space Marines, but maybe not now for this one. Overall, it's not too bad though. It's definitely grown on me since I first saw it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think there's a lot of really nice elements to them, and I was like you with that, Phil, as well. I was a little bit like, not necessarily blow me away at the start, but as I've seen more of them, I think they look pretty good. And the only thing that's interesting to me is the notion that we are now basically getting an Assault Terminator kit for Dark Angels, but we're still now missing the Assault Terminator kit for all Space Marines. Okay, fair enough. There is Assault Terminators. You can get the current sculpts, but it's a weird thing that potentially Assault Terminators are becoming a kind of, at least in terms of modern sculpts anyway, Dark Angel only thing for a while. The other thing as well I will say is I think for anyone out there who is keenly excited about expanding their collection for other Terminator variants, I think, if you were a Space Wolf player or maybe even a Blood Angel player and you wanted to pick up the sort of, Blood Angel, Space Wolf specific Terminator variants, it's fair to say now that you're probably apprehensive because it's clear that Games Workshop are keen to kind of, go back and address those Terminator sculpts. So I would imagine that unless you're really, really into the current Wolf Guard Terminator kit, for example, you're probably now going to exercise restraint because Games Workshop's made it very clear that they are now going to go back and readdress that balance, noting that Space Wolves are coming. We do not know when. Same thing for like Blood Angels. I mean, actually talking about that, we didn't really talk about it before, but it's probably a good thing to kind of close out this particular part of 40K. They also gave us the Codex roadmap for 2024, which was interesting because what it tells me is that Games Workshop marketing doesn't understand how seasons work, or they're genuinely telling us that we're going to get Adeptus Mechanicus and Necrons. So Adeptus Mechanicus and Necrons are coming out not next week, but the week after, right?
I'd assume so, because next week is when Legions Imperialis actually comes out. I would expect probably that's when they Necrons and Admech go up for pre-order, probably. Yeah,
so they're going to come out on the 2nd of December, right? The 2nd of December is winter. The 2nd of December is still autumn. So
technically, but it feels like winter.
Not technically, it is. And then winter doesn't conclude until the end of March. So essentially what this chart tells us is that we've got Adeptus Mechanicus and Necrons coming in the winter, but they're actually not coming in the winter. They're coming in the autumn. And then we're not going to see Dark Angels, Orcs, Chaos Space Marine, Tau, or Custodes to the spring, but spring doesn't start till late March. So, by their calendar, we're going 3 months without another Codex release.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm sure we'll get something in January at the very least.
I would assume so. I would assume we'd have something January, February, even March. So I would assert that, I think Games Workshop's marketing department could do with learning how calendars work.
Again, like I said, it's, quarters like Q1, Q2 probably rather than actual season.
Yeah, that's fair.
Really mean, but I think they've just made the incorrect assumption that spring means January, even though it actually isn't.
Yeah, no. I've lived for a few Januaries, Phil. They're not. They ain't spring.
No, that's for sure. It'd be interesting to see if there's any more Dark Angels coming with this release, or if it will be done like a lot of the other larger armies where they do them in phases. So maybe this one is all Deathwing stuff, and then maybe next year we get the Ravenwing stuff. That'd be quite cool to see. And it'll be interesting, as you say, if Games Workshop's going just all in on Terminators. So are we going to see next year the Assault Terminators, and are we going to see Terminator variants for the other chapters? I mean, part of me thinks they might. It's a bit like how Specialist Games just did all the vehicles, right, for Horus Heresy and Plastic. They were like, we're going to do a few, so we might as well do them all because they're all kind of similar. And maybe Games Workshop's like, people like Terminators, so let's just give them all the Terminators. But didn't you say Belial is a Terminator captain?
Correct.
So it's like, why wouldn't they do them with this release?
Yeah, I think
sort of. If you're going to do it, like the Terminator captain for the Genetic Space Marines came out with the regular Terminators.
Well, no, he didn't.
Oh, well, no. Well, they previewed him at the same time, but for whatever reason, he hasn't come out. Although you have got the Leviathan box version, so there is one out there, but just not the general release version.
Yeah.
And again, why those two aren't just the same is a bit odd.
Yeah, agreed. I think. I wouldn't hate him for doing a Belial release. In fact, I'm quite the opposite. I'd be very happy for him to give us a Belial. I would think that the better play is to focus on Samael and some Ravenwing stuff, because I think at the end of the day, Space Marine Primaris, whatever they are now, is relatively under-supported from the unit entry perspective that supports the components of the Ravenwing. So you do obviously now have Storm Speeders and you do have Outriders, but I think it's logical that you probably want to look at things like Ravenwing Black Knights. Do we need to see a new Ravenwing Black Knight kit that essentially looks similar to the Outriders? I think you probably do. So I think it's probably necessary that we get a new Black Knight kit that is more akin to what the Outrider kit looks like. And I do also think that we need a Samael or Ravenwing Talonmaster sculpt that essentially enables Games Workshop to retire the old Land Speeder kit, because at the moment the only thing still utilizing the Land Speeder kit is the Ravenwing Talonmaster. So I think that probably needs to be retired, so as Ravenwing can move over to the Storm Speeder and Outrider variants to kind of modernize that range. So I think if you gave us a Samael character sculpt that could also be used as a generic Ravenwing captain / lieutenant / Talon master, that would be really good. And then the question then comes, do you then do anything about the Nephilim or the Dark Talon, which are their 2 flyer variants? I think you're fair enough to leave those alone. I think there's no harm in keeping them as is. And then the last pieces of the puzzle is the Dark Shroud and the Dark Vengeance, which are the 2 Land Speeder variants that are Dark Angel specific. I would prefer to see them not discontinue those. I don't think they necessarily have to, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did, because ultimately they kind of occupy a weird spot now. But if it was that you wanted to keep the Dark Shroud / Vengeance, I don't think anyone would particularly begrudge those being, continued to be supported. But yeah, the Land Speeder stuff probably all just needs to go away now. As sad as that is, it's inevitable given the way the range is now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Unless they do sort of more Storm Speeder inspired variants of them. But yeah, because normally most vehicles, old Firstborn vehicles, stick around. Like, they don't go. However, Land Speeders are the ones that kind of have gone by the wayside, because you've got Storm Speeders as a direct child of. So yeah, I can understand that. I think the flyers will stick around, as with the regular Firstborn flyers. And actually, the flyers are really cool. I quite like the look of that one.
Yeah. They've got really, really cool
That's
flyers.
really nice.
They're really good. But so that was Dangles. Next thing is the latest in the Dawnbringer series, the Mad King Rises, which is something of a preamble for the range refresh of the Flesh Eater Court, which is looking mighty fine. But the first of the miniatures that they showed off in support of the range refresh for the Flesh Eater Court is this rather magnificent, hulking king character whose name I'm not 100% sure of. Phil?
I'll give it a go. It's Osharan the Bold. Weirdly, it says finest blade of the Mortarks, and it's like he doesn't really have any blades on him. He carries a big scepter. So no blades there, but oh god, it's a beautiful mini. If we were to rate the miniatures from the preview, and the Interrogator Chaplain was at the bottom, this I think is right at the top.
I mean,
It's just a big chunky boy.
I can't necessarily agree with you with the bottom rating of the Interrogator Chaplain, but I will certainly align with you on this chap sitting at the top of the pile, both figuratively and literally by the look of him. I mean, he looks like he stands atop a mighty pile of death and decay. And I mean, the aesthetic of this character, the overall visual of it, the presence of it, the detail of the miniature, it's stupendous. This is why Age of Sigmar is one of the most evocative and exciting universes in all of Games Workshop's, pantheon, as it were. This is a amazing demonstration of why Age of Sigmar is so exciting and so interesting of a world. And I know that is a potentially controversial statement, but I'm loving discovering and delving into the worlds of Age of Sigmar, and things like the Flesh Eater Courts. I was aware of their kind of general premise, but I felt like their range wasn't really ever doing them justice. It felt like the Flesh Eater Courts was like an aspect of the old world vampire range that or rather undead range that never really found its place in AOS, and it's only now that they've started to produce these sorts of miniatures that encapsulate the overarching idea of what the Flesh Eater Court is and bring it to life on the tabletop in an incredible way that you start to go, goodness gracious, this is stupendous. Like, to me, this is the best looking Death faction, in my opinion. I think it's these guys, the Nighthawks. They're my two favorite Death factions in terms of appearance, but I think these guys have very quickly climbed the ladder, which is remarkable when, if I'm honest with you, prior to this range refresh, I would have told you that the Flesh Eater Courts are probably one of the ugliest ranges in all of Age of Sigmar.
No, you're probably correct, because I remember actually before I got into Nighthaunt, I was looking at Flesh Eater Court as a really viable option. Like, I kind of like the concept of them, like they're sort of these mad creatures that all think they're knights and squires, and there's this whole kind of almost like Bretonian-esque vibe to them, but it's all in their head. But it was never particularly visualized in their miniatures, and as you say, it felt like maybe that's because they've sort of ported over just the old fantasy sort of look of the ghouls without adding in that sort of knightly vibes to them, which is what they finally have done, which I think actually really elevates them to a much nicer army. But Ocheron, yeah, he just looks fantastic. He's like a kind of King Kong model. He's just really big. And I always joked about it before, like how AOS is all about these giant big hero centerpiece models, and that every faction effectively has one. Annoyingly, Nighthaunt doesn't really have one quite like that. You've obviously got Alinda, but she's quite a small model in the grand scheme of things, and very sort of fragile. And
the Black Coach, Phil.
The Black Coach is a big model, but it's not. I don't know. It's not quite.
It's not
there.
a hero, right? It's just
it's just a thing, and it's like, so you did have the big. I want to say it was like not Mongol. It was something like that though from Forge World, which was like a big giant ghoul, and that was very much like what this guy looks like in terms of you've just taken a ghoul, and you've just made him really big. You've embiggened him. And it's not something like this, completely out of left field. No one would think, oh yeah, it's just take the Flesh Eater Courts and then just take one of them and just make him really big and fat. And you King Kongified him, basically. And ultimately, that's what they've done, and they've completely pulled it off, smashed it out of the park, and it just looks fantastic. So now looking at Flesh Eater Court, as you say, I'm a bit like, I could be really tempted to get into them. And that is the thing about a lot of Age of Sigmar armies, is they just kind of, they're just phenomenal.
What I'm finding with Age of Sigmar is that it becomes really easy to be enamored with or invested in an umbrella faction. So for me, destruction is so easy to dip into other things because the game makes it really easy for you to take elements of destruction and put it in one place, especially coming at it from an Uruk's perspective, because Uruk War Clans is 3 armies in one anyway. So once you layer on Gloom Spy, Behemoth, all these other things, right? Like you could just start to go, add in some more tribes. You know, it's so easy to just be like, you know what? Why not pick up this extra bit of something and I can layer it into my army? And I think this is the thing with these guys. Like, I think certainly, not that I'm desperately encouraging you to pick up the new upcoming kind of start collecting box set for the Flesh Eater Court, the army set. But I mean, if I was a Death player or I had a Death faction, I probably would be thinking, what's the harm in adding this into the mix? Because, you know, ultimately it's very easy for you to kind of add these elements into your army. So yeah, I think that's one of the really great things about the AOS kind of faction system as well, because it's not like in like 40k where, I don't know, if you play Eldari, you have 3 different flavors of Eldari, but they're all broadly the same kind of elfy thing. In AOS, it's like, oh, I play Order, so I could be playing Cities of Sigmar, but I could add in some Idenef Deepkin, or I could add in some Fire Slayers, and you know, just really drastically different elements could be added to your collection and still be cohesive under that umbrella brand of order. So that's what's really amazing about it. It's like it's just there's so much like diversity in these ranges, and it's amazing that you can just mix it up. So yeah, I mean, basically what I'm saying is, Phil, you totally should get these.
Yeah, it's weird because I had the old Underworld's warband of these guys, and I picked them up for my Wartime warband that was vampire undead, because you can get ghouls in Wartime. So I was gonna, I had a small unit of them, and I kind of don't like some of the over the top sort of tribal sort of bone where they like sort of pierce their skin with bones and stuff like that, which is why I like these ones more, because they've got more of that knightly vibe to them. Like they're carrying swords. So for new units, you've got Crypt Guard, which have got swords, and then you've got some with halberds as well, by the looks of it. Then you've got the Morbeg Knights, which are knights on bats, and then like the banners are made of like flayed skin, which I think is ingenious. It's a bit like so there was a model that I previewed just before this where he was like a judge of some kind, and he had a big powdered wig, but it was like innards, like intestines and stuff, and it's like that kind of mad crossover. It's like those visual cues that make you go, yeah, I can see that they think they're knights now because they're carrying swords and shields and banners, but all of those things aren't like normal shields. The swords are all rusted, for example, and the banners are made of dead people. That's, phenomenal. Then there's the Varangov Courtiers, who's like a giant bat with really long arms. He's kind of cool. He's a bit crazy. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I think, because aren't those normally like vampires, but they're like the ones that have just like really mutated into sort of vampire bats.
I mean, again, I need to really better understand the Flesh Eater Court lore. I don't know where they end and vampires begin, and where the lines are drawn between them. But yeah, I mean, certainly within the confines of like a kind of vampire-based fluff, I assume they're like more kind of grossly mutated, more aged vampires that have, given in to more of a kind of feral existence. But within the confines of the Flesh Eater Court, I'll be honest, I don't know enough to know for sure at this stage. But what I will say is I'm excited to learn about it. I think this range is amazing. I think they've done a great job. I mean, even the basic ghouls are such a marked improvement over their old sculpts. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
It's I mean, don't, obviously, if you already own the old ghouls, don't buy new ghouls unless you want like one or two to sprinkle in with your existing range. But yeah, if you're getting in this for the first time, I think it's just an absolutely stunning range of minis. I won't go through and sort of individually score each of them. I think overall this range is as a range, I think it's a solid 9, and as a lone character, the actual king character, he's a straight 10. He's incredible. And it's going to be really exciting to see how this develops in the storyline of the Dawnbringers and what that means and where that's going to take us as we go into the 4th edition of AOS next year. Because that's going to be really exciting to see how that story progresses and what they're doing in that space. But I will say this, I think almost all of the new sculpts that they've done for Dawnbringer have been universally amazing. Like, they've all been fantastic, from the very early Flesh Eater Court fella who had the big bone over his shoulder, and he had that gimmick where he could hand you this bone, and then you could sort of barter with him for it. To the Iron Jaws, to the Trogs, and the new dragon riding, Stormcast Eternals. It's just been tremendous. It's an incredible range of miniatures, and just a really great send off for what has been, by all accounts, a great edition of Age of Sigmar. I still remain really anxious about what it is that they're going to do with AOS going into 4th Ed. But I'm really grateful that I've now started engaging with and enjoying Age of Sigmar. I think it's a really great game, and I think if they continue to give us stuff like this, I genuinely can't see a reason why more people wouldn't want to get involved and start, slinging cubes and pushing around these kind of miniatures, because they just look tremendous. I'm dead impressed.
That's true. Yeah, because the abhorrent cardinal's kind of cool. I mean, he's probably my least favorite out of all of them. But the Royal Decapitator,
I love him.
The last one, honestly, it's a phenomenal sculpt. Both head options, amazing. But the paint job, this feels like it's a Golden Demon winner right there. It's beyond an heavy metal paint job. Whoever painted this, amazing. I saw this and was literally stunned when they previewed it. I was like, the paint job is just gorgeous. The tones are amazingly muted, really amazing blending. Everything about it is just phenomenal. It felt like someone just worked overtime to make this a really impressive paint job. It just stands out. I don't know, they're all really well painted, to be honest, but that one just stands out for me as just being piece de resistance.
It's really nice. It's really nice. I mean, they're just, God bless them. They've done great work, is all I can really say about this. I think, I'm not obviously foolish enough to suggest that the Flesh Eater Courts is going to be everything to everyone. I don't think people are going to necessarily fall in love with the range, and there are definitely other things within said range that will probably suit you better if you're interested in all sorts of things. But AOS is just, again, even though I'm not myself going to collect Flesh Eater Courts, I'm really excited to see them across the tabletop. I can't wait to throw down against these big scary buggers and see what they bring to the table.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice that they're actually getting sort of a range refresh, but in an addition, because weirdly, one of the things that we always talked about, Age of Sigmar's always had relatively small armies. For most part. You get some Stormcast and even Soulblight Graveyards are actually quite expansive. But Flesh Eater Courts was a very small, compact range with only kind of a limited models, a bit like Fire Slayers. And it's now they're actually expanding that to be a bit more of a full army range. You get lots of choice now, get loads of different units types. You don't just have a big monster and a couple of little guys. It's you've got knights, you've got other big things in between those sizes. Now you've got an absolutely huge thing. So loads of unit choice in terms of army composition, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. No, I think it's really amazing. And I mean, obviously as well, we saw some early hints of the directions they were going to be taking these in their Warcry release. And I think, just now it's amazing. They've again, I know we are definitely guilty of praising AOS quite a lot at the moment, but I think with good reason. Those look amazing. Really excited to see those come to life. So great reveal there. Next is the Stab Lads, the Dagox Stab Lads, which is Warhammer Underworld's release. So this is a new Cruel Boys unit, a new Naughty Boys unit. I currently am working on painting up a 1,000-point force of Cruel Boys for the doubles event in January that me, Phil, and other LOS-associated individuals will be attending. These look tremendous, but they are basically just basic Cruel Boys. It's difficult to really kind of be overly excited about this particular range of miniatures, but they are really pretty. I don't think they're as nice as the recent Warcry releases that we got. I think the Warcry release was a little bit stronger, and I think the previously released Underworld's Cruel Boys release was a little bit more compelling with its use of more of the little rots, the little goblins and so on. But these look fine. I'll probably almost certainly pick them up and add them to my collection. But as Underworld gangs go, this is pretty underwhelming. It's fine. It's just nothing super special.
Yeah, they're not kind of crazy in terms of like their war gear options or what they do, because sometimes they go really left of field with the warband stuff. And this time, as you say, it's pretty standard. I do love the guy blowing the big horn, though. I think that's really cool, and I would be potentially tempted to chuck him into just a standard unit rather than run the Underworld's warband as its own war scroll, like you can do. It just take some of these models and just throw them into regular units just to make them look a bit nicer. And I like the boss guy. He seems pretty cool. He's sort of a bit flat in his pose, I think, but otherwise, I actually really love the look of him in terms of what he's up to, what he's doing. They look suitably menacing and sneaky, dare I say.
I struggle with the fact that he's got like a big mace sort of like held by his side in a really kind of underwhelming fashion. He's just sort of like got it there like a dagger.
Yeah, he's just posing. He's looking. He's surveying the battlefield. That's all he's doing. Yeah. It's not an action pose. It's one of those commissar looking back poses that you don't like.
It's not that I don't like him. I think I don't mind the looking back pose. I think it works in some instances. It's not. I don't know. It's fine. Like I said, this is a 6 out of 10 box of Crawl Boys. It's fine. There's nothing especially special about them. There's nothing at all wrong with them. They're Crawl Boys, so they're always going to be a little bit divisive. Although, again, hold my hands up, the Crawl Boy range has actually really grown on me. I've become much more of a fan of it since really diving into AOS this year, and I think Crawl Boys are actually a lot of fun. So yeah, they're fine, but they're nothing special, I suppose, is all you can say in conclusion. A pretty underwhelming contribution to this set of reveals, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 4 of them, so there's only so much you can get out of them. So that's fair enough.
So next is Heresy, and it's Assault Squads. Assault Squads with jump packs, which are honestly amazing. Like, seeing these demonstrates or communicates to me how much G-Dubs dropped the ball with the intercessors with jump packs. I think the thing that's been so crazy about the release of Primaris Space Marines has been that for the span of 2 editions, the things that people most often said they wanted was jump pack Space Marines. We want jump pack Primaris Marines. That's the thing we want more than anything. And now that we have them, I don't think anyone cares. Like, I feel like the release of the Assault Intercessors with jump pack squads was so utterly underwhelming. I think the sculpts were really like meh, and I think the actual kind of enthusiasm for them within the game has been equally meh. Whereas this unit looks stupendous, even down to the fact that they've actually gone so far as to put additional armor details on the miniatures to account for strapping into these gigantic jump packs, which again was a detail that was absent of the Primaris variant. I just think,
I was going to point that out, that they've got the harnesses on, which is what you wanted. But they've got like this extra breastplate going over their torso piece, to sort of actually show where the harness goes, I guess. So it's a really cool set of models. It's weird because this style of jump pack, I remember, because I've got some ideas for some Thunder Warrior style jump pack guys. And this style of jump pack goes back to the old metal Chaos minis. Because I don't think Forge World ever did a resin version of these jump packs, or if they did, you couldn't get them anymore. But because I remember eyeing up basically a metal jump pack from a Chaos, I think it was like a Chaos Lord kit on eBay, just to try and get this style of jump packs, because the only other people were doing it were like 3D printer people online. So the fact that this is now in plastic is phenomenal, because it looks gorgeous. The posing, despite them not being jumping in the air like I wanted with the Intercessor variant, actually looks really good. Like the way they pose them looks very cool. I like all the different weapon options, like the bare head option. Like the fact you can get a little shield with it as well. Yeah, a very top-rated kit design, I think. And also, these are the ones you see in Legions Imperialis as well.
Yeah. I mean, the kit you're referring to is the old Chaos Space Marine Raptor kit, which was the metal Raptor kit that I believe they either released in 3rd or 4th edition. I think it's in all probability a 4th edition release. But it could also have come out late 3rd. But yeah, the old Raptor kit has a lot of similarities in terms of jump pack design to these. I think obviously the armor the Mark V armor really goes a long way as well in terms of selling the kind of sleek assault marine look as well. I think that really kind of elevates it as well because, that beaky space marine design.
Aerodynamic.
Yep. Quintessential assault marine. Again, just an utterly amazing looking release. I wouldn't be shocked, and I would highly encourage the greater majority of Space Marine players to pick up these to represent your Assault Space Marines. Because I wouldn't be shocked to discover if they were cheaper per model than the Assault Intercessors with jump packs as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, in all probability, they're going to come in boxes of 10 because of...
or 20. That's how they like to do it.
That is sometimes how they do it. Well, that is how they do it for the regular kind of like tactical squads. But I think logically, 10 would be the way that they would roll these out. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, obviously, you can't say for certain, but I think these are way better than the Assault Intercessor kits. And I think it would be ironic if after having spent all this time with players taking Intercessor kits and putting jump packs on them to kind of scale them up to, the more kind of modern sculpt size, if it is that now you can buy proper Assault Intercessors with jump packs and people are preferring to buy the firstborn Horus Heresy Marine variants because they just look better. That would be fun. But no, I mean honestly, without being ridiculous, it's a 10. It's incredible. These are phenomenal. I am a big fan of Horus Heresy. I'm a big fan of Space Marines, and I'm a big fan of these. They look absolutely great. And sorry, that was Richie calling while I was saying those words.
It's always Richie ruining the podcast.
Ruining the podcast, Richie. That's what you do. Apologies that I couldn't answer you just then. I will call you right back.
But yeah, totally bang on the money. I think it's a phenomenal kit. Yeah, can't go wrong with these guys.
No, not at all. Really, really cool. Moving on to what I think is the weakest reveal. I know. The Enforcer buggy truck Taurus vehicle thingy.
Taurus Venator.
Yeah, not a fan. This has the same kind of vibe as that quad bike they did for the was it the Van? Not the Vansar, the other ones, the
Orlok,
the Orlok guys. Similar kind of vibe to that. There's something about when you put figures in vehicles like this. There's something about the posing and the general kind of aesthetic of them that just makes the whole thing feel really static and really, lackluster, in my opinion. It's just not very good.
The driver I quite like. The gunner, I do understand what you mean, and I don't like the weird, concussion cannons. Look just too mad sci-fi for my liking, not very 40k. But there is a version with auto cannons, which I think looks a bit more traditional. I kind of like it just purely for the fact that this was an Elysian drop pod unit back in the day that you could buy in resin. I think there was a few different versions of it. One had, I think, twin las cannons, and the other one had grenade launchers, I think. And that they've basically bought that model back in plastic, not for Guard, but for the Paladin Enforcers. So glad to see Forge World recycle good stuff and for it to come back. I kind of see what you mean about opposing to an extent, but you you can't really do much about that, I don't think.
That's fair. That's fair. You can't do much about it, but yeah, it's just something about it just doesn't wow me. Is all I'm basically saying. It's fine. The paint job's really nice. The color scheme is, I guess, reasonable. It's cool that they are expanding Necromunda with all of these vehicles. I guess it feels a little bit. Again, I've not been massively in love with them taking Necromunda in that direction, although I do understand why they're doing it, and I do kind of respect it. And also, they have produced some amazing sculpts as a part of that process. This just isn't one of them, in my opinion. I think it's fine, but it isn't wowing me. It's it's just not. It's not quite. I don't know. It's weird as well because it reminds me a lot of those old Elysian buggies. What were those called?
That literally what we're talking about. It was the Taurus Venator. That's what this is.
Well, weirdly, I don't know why, the Elysian variant of them, I don't know. I just think they look better.
No, I agree. I think so. There were two versions of the Elysian one. I think one was I would say one was a 4-wheeled buggy and one was a 6. It was something like that because there was a bigger version and a smaller version. And yeah, I think they worked better. I think the rear wasn't as enclosed as this one is, maybe, and it didn't have like the blast shield and stuff. And because this guy looks like you just get the top half of the torso, which reminds me a bit of the gunner in the Storm Speeders at the back, the one that's sort of stuck between the two giant missiles. So yeah, I don't think that bit works quite as well as how they did it with because the Elysian guy I think was just standing on the back, much like the Orlok one I think you were referencing. So yeah, it's cool they brought it back. Fans or people that like to somehow convert up Elysians in plastic, maybe if they're mad, could use these, which is great. Or other guard players. So it is cool that it's they brought it back to life in some form or another.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's compared to the old Elysian kits, I suppose it probably does have more in common with those than I'm giving it credit for. But yeah, I don't know. It's just not charming me.
It'd be good to see a side by side of it for sure to see how much they've changed. Because obviously I think we're just going off of memory, right? It'd be good to see like actually how the old one looked versus the new one.
Yeah, that's the thing. But also because, Richie has played Elysians, I'm sort of used to seeing those things on the tabletop, and I remember them looking super cool. So maybe it's just one of those that I need to see in person. Maybe that's just the nature of it. It's one of those kits that, when looking at it on a picture on the internet, it's never going to do it justice versus seeing it in reality in the flesh, so to speak. So yeah, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but it is probably the thing I'm least interested in off the back of these reveals.
It's no Interrogator Chaplain.
It's no Asmodai. You're absolutely right. Nor is it a new fabulous box of Night Lords. Night Lords, one of the potentially coolest legions of the Chaos Space Marines. Never really been done justice in terms of figures before. Like, yes, obviously there is an exhaustive or rather, healthy selection of Night Lord related stuff in the world of Horus Heresy. And they have, over the years, tried to have Night Lords feature more as the poster children of Warhammer 40,000. Definitely back in, like, 2nd edition, it felt like Night Lords were ever more present than they are today. I definitely recall many a Chaos Space Marine player in the early years of 40k adding those lovely little lightning bolt details to their Terminators and being like, ooh, Night Lords, baby. But this is, a pretty remarkable step forwards for fans of Kurz and all of his, questionably morally bankrupt, potentially, children. This is, a Kill Team box set for the Night Lord specifically. Intriguingly, Phil, the first Kill Team reveal that we've had that isn't accompanied by another kill team. It's just Night Lords.
Yeah, so this is specifically the upgrade kits to the standard Chaos Legionnaires. So I assume whatever they're coming out alongside will be new sculpts, but we just don't know what they are. But yeah, I really like these minis. I think they've done a good job. It's amazing that basically a couple of upgrade pieces plus a paint job can totally change how the standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines look. So yeah, I think phenomenal, basically.
Yeah, I can only echo that. I think this is amazing and a great step forward for the Chaos Space Marine range. I really want to see this for other legions. I really want like Iron Warriors. They technically kind of sort of have done it with the other Kill Team release, which was an upgrade sprue for the same Legionnaire kit. So there
wasn't that just standard Legionnaires?
Yes, it was. I assume that was kind of done more in the flavor of the Black Legion because it incorporated elements from multiple different legions. But I think, if we were able to see, another one of these, so as I say, for Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, who else is there that isn't massively represented? I mean, obviously, Emperor's Children are very likely to get a whole new range soon, so maybe you don't need to prioritize them.
Red Corsairs would be nice, although they're not one of the major ones.
Yeah, Red Corsairs would be cool. I mean, again, they're more of a kind of recent traitor chapter, renegade chapter. That's the terminology.
But they are the poster child of the renegade chapters, though.
It would be cool. It would be really, really cool. I think that's the thing. I'd just love to see them really support that, because obviously right now you've got your Thousand Suns, your Death Guard, your World Eaters, and your sort of generic Chaos Space Marines. But now being able to express things like Night Lords in this way is just phenomenal. So I'm sure there are lots of people out there looking to add Night Lords to their Chaos Space Marine collections. We were talking to Joe about this the other day, and he was saying how he just wants to lean into kind of old school Chaos Space Marine warband style army list building, where he has a squad of Night Lords, a squad of Death Guard, a squad of World Eaters, a squad of Thousand Suns, and it's all just a mishmash, which I massively respect. I think that would be super cool if we got to that with Chaos.
Yeah, because when we saw him yesterday, he noted that they've actually taken out the Legion keywords from the data sheets. So in theory, it's quite easy to do that now, and there's no sort of stipulation like chapters have for being exclusive to one chapter per army. So that's quite cool. I mean, it would be really cool if they could also somehow do this with the Terminator kits for Chaos. So they do Night Lord specific upgrade kits for the Terminator kits and stuff like that, because then that's a really easy way to flesh out the armies in these different flavors. And likewise, this is sort of what we always said we wanted for Guard, right? To have these kind of little regiment specific upgrade kits to the generic ones, which would work for some, but not for all of the major regiments for Guard. So it's cool they're doing it with these guys. Yeah.
No, I totally agree, mate. I love them. I think it's a really good win. And if we see a meaningful release this edition for Emperor's Children, I think Chaos are just in an incredible place now, or at least Chaos Space Marines, which is really great to see, because it always sort of felt like throughout the span of these new editions of 40k, 8th, 9th, etc., obviously we saw so much love being poured into Space Marines, but their Chaos equivalent had kind of lingered, and it has been quite piecemeal for them, but they are the big bad, and ultimately, yeah, sure, Death Guard have got a lot of love. World Eaters have done okay. I think World Eaters still need another, push. I think they really would benefit from a good rotation of additional miniatures. But yeah, look, I think this is a really good step in a good direction for, those Chaos fans. And I'm sure, like Joe, many a fan of Chaos will be super excited to add these to their collection and ultimately bolstered by what this represents, which is super good. So yeah, no, I mean, like honestly, it's a solid 9 for me on those. Really, really love them. They've done a good job there. Last of the reveals, Phil, takes us back to the old world, no less. Indeed, the land of square bases and not Eastern European, but just sort of oldie worldy European fun. But not quite that European, because what we're dealing with here is something a little bit more Egyptian in its kind of origins, a little bit more to the kind of to the east, I suppose, in the form of a new sculpt for the Tomb Kings, in the form of, what are they calling this thing?
This is the Necrolith Bone Dragon.
Necrolith Bone Dragon.
I think there's 2 different riders that you can have on it, and in addition, basically whichever one you don't build, you can do it as a standalone. So it builds either the Tomb King or High Priest on the Bone Dragon. I remember when I saw the video, and I was just like, oh, please let this be in plastic. Please let it be in plastic. Because if this comes out in resin, I think loads of people will be really disappointed. It'll be really difficult to build as well. But thankfully, it's in plastic, which is great that Forge World are actually doing some big stuff in plastic, and it's not like rank and file is plastic and all the characters are in resin, which is, I think, what people originally were speculating, because that is generally the model, the business model of I say Forge World specialist games, right? Overall, I really like it. I think it's cool. It's very Egyptian. He's a bit of like a weird crocodile dragon thing. I've seen people say they should just ditch the wings, and then it is definitely like a giant crocodile. There's that weird mummified cat, which they finally put a picture of, so that's cool to see. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think the characters look brilliant as well. Like, and the palanquin on top, and the weird. I didn't know what it was until they explained it, like the sand vulture. So the vulture appearing out of like this, like a sort of sand spell. That's really clever, I think. What's your take on it?
I mean, it's difficult not to love it, right? I think ultimately a lot of what they're doing with the range refresh and the re-releases and the new releases for the old world is all really, really promising. And I think this carries on in that vein. I think it's a really gorgeous sculpt, and I think ultimately it's something that, Tomb King fans and old world or Warhammer Fantasy fans should be really excited about. I've got to say as well, man, it seems like, again, from a relatively distant perspective, that what Games Workshop are doing with, or rather the specialist games team are doing with Warhammer the Old Worlds is really exciting. Like, it feels like they're taking so many cues from so many old editions of Warhammer while also injecting new ideas into it. It feels like what we're looking at here is going to be a really amazing game, which is, I think, amazing, because ultimately I think the fans of Warhammer Fantasy, obviously they've been quite jilted by the business. They've been quite understandably frustrated by the loss of this world and the beginnings of Age of Sigmar. And ultimately, it's taken Games Workshop a really long time since the announcement to get to a place where we're almost ready to see this thing come out and be released and start being supported. But all of the articles I read on it, all of the commentaries I'm seeing, I think they're winning over their kind of core fan base. And I think they are getting to a place where people are feeling really, really hopeful that this is going to be a really good game. I don't know for sure if it will be, but I remain super hopeful that it is. I think, 8th edition Fantasy, which was a version of Fantasy I played very casually, I was definitely most, prolific in my games of Fantasy around the kind of 6th, 7th edition period. But the 8th edition of Fantasy definitely created a lot of controversy at the time because of decisions taken. I think there were things that definitely impacted certain kind of core ideas and mechanics. But 8th has definitely gone on to become a really loved edition of the game and is obviously very well supported by a very passionate fan base. But it feels like this is really developing on some of the old ideas and taking it in really new and interesting directions. So I'm very excited for this game. I'm not necessarily sure that I'm going to have capacity to play it myself. I think in all probability I'm not going to have that capacity. But I'm liking what I see. I think the models are great. I think the rules sound really good. I'm really hopeful that this is a great game because I think that's what that fan base deserves. And I think that's what that setting deserves. And I want to see it flourish. I want to see it succeed. And I think just like this are a step in the right direction towards achieving that. I think between this and everything we've seen for Pretonia, I'm very enthusiastic about what I'm seeing for Old Worlds. That's not to say that I'm falling over myself to play it, but then obviously I wasn't falling over myself to play Legion Imperialis before we recorded episode 168. And now look at me. I'm not all in, but I have at least, bought it, and you and I are going to, engage in a kind of painting challenge to put it together. Maybe, who knows, Phil? Maybe when Old World comes around, maybe there's another
we'll do the same
challenge waiting in the wings for us.
No, please note, but yeah.
Well, I suppose both of us will be campaigning. I was like, please give me the skeletons. Please give me the skeletons. At least they're like, yeah.
True. Yeah, it's interesting. I think what they're doing from the rules preview seems really good. The models all seem really great that they've been producing so far. I get the biggest criticism of being that they're releasing a lot of the old miniatures with it, but that's always understandable. That's basically what they've done for every game that they've done. I mean, they didn't explicitly really do it with the Necromunda game when they re-released that, but they did it with Blood Bowl, right? So you got two teams, you got orcs and humans. They released the rules for all the pre-existing races, and they basically said, if you've got halflings or if you've got Skaven, use your old models for now, basically. And occasionally they did the mail order, bringing them back for people to buy. And I assume this is their business methodology for this as well. It's allow people to play with the old models and buy the old models temporarily until they get around with their slow drip feed of content to bring out plastic versions of everything, basically. And that they will eventually do like a kind of range refresh for Bretonian and Tomb Kings. I mean, that's my theory based on what they've done with previous systems in the past, because they just don't have the capacity to be like, here's 2 brand new armies from scratch, or even like 10 armies, because that's probably how many there are in the game in total, right? There's going to be a lot. They can't just drop like complete new designs for absolutely everything from day one. No, that's going to be like a slow build over several years until the game is much more kind of complete from a multi-faction kind of playability. So it'll be great when we get there, but it's got to get there, and the game's got to be supported enough for it to be financially viable for them to get there. So that's why, I want it to do well. I want to sort of follow along, even if I'm just looking sort of over the fence to see what's going on and be like, ooh, that looks fun. I would like to play that, but I know I never will. A bit like Titanicus. And go, ooh, that looks nice.
Indeed. But there you go. That was the reveals from the World Championships of Warhammer. Massive shout out to the Warhammer community team for broadcasting 4 straight days of Warhammer related madness, and also still managing to find the enthusiasm a couple of days into that broadcast schedule to do these previews and get excited about it. It's definitely evident that this team know a good amount about 40k, but not a lot about much else. Noting that obviously me and Phil are very similar in that regard, although we are, on a journey with AOS at the minute, and obviously are also trying to, dabble in things like Heresy, Old World, etc. But obviously you can't be an expert of all things, but ultimately I thought they did a really amazing job, which is really great. Overall, I'd say that, the standout is definitely the Flesh Eater Court. I think that was absolutely amazing. Definitely the highlight of the overall reveals. One thing I would love to see from Games Workshop, from Warhammer going forwards for things like this is that, they support their staff and have multiple teams of individuals present at these kind of events, or, you know, in support of the people who they are having, you know, broadcasting and streaming multiple hours every day on a 4-day stint, that they actually maybe have other teams that produce and deliver this kind of content. Because I am sincerely worried about the fact that, you know, Eddie and Paul here from the Warhammer community team seemingly had to do something in the ballpark of, you know, 48 hours of work over the span of what would have been not 72 hours. It would have been, I guess, 96 hours or whatever it was. You know, they worked a lot of hours is basically what I'm saying. I think they probably did half of the available hours to them over the span of 4 days was working. I think they were doing I think they did basically 4 12-hour days.
Well, they probably did even more than that in terms of prep and stuff like that, as well as what was just visible from the streams.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. I think it's one of those things where it's like, to me, I think ultimately, you know, World Championships of Warhammer, I think the saddest thing about the World Championships of Warhammer stream was the fact that, you know, 40k was the star, and as it should be, it's the biggest game and it deserves the love. But I definitely was excited to see the coverage of AOS, but the only place that was really being done was on the French stream. We basically just got a load of like tokenistic moments on it. I think the fact that, you know, essentially they prioritized 40k is understandable, but it was a shame really, because ultimately I had asserted that this was going to be a celebration of all forms of Warhammer. But I think under the circumstances, I think the team on the ground did the best they could. But I'd love to see Games Workshop actually put more resources and more support into this, especially with things like the narrative gaming that was going on as well. I heard amazing things about that. Lots of people were saying amazing things about the narrative gaming. The fact that Games Workshop didn't really have an opportunity, or the Warhammer community team on site didn't have much of an opportunity to elevate that and to showcase that, is a real shame. I think ultimately Games Workshop should be investing money into this team to be able to have as many as, you know, 5 teams of commentators working on rotation, covering multiple games, people walking the, you know, showroom floor, so to speak, doing vox pops, picking up little bits of conjecture, also just doing general kind of temperature checks on things that aren't just happening on the top tables. I think, you know, from a production perspective, it would be really valuable if we had multiple games being broadcast and captured at the same time, and ultimately, you know, the main kind of hosts could just flip between commentary teams and let them take the reins and talk more efficiently about things happening. What we basically ended up with was a few guys run ragged, trying to constantly maintain a level of unrealistic enthusiasm over the span of 4 days, while doing the very best they could to do justice to the AOS system, while ultimately not really being that knowledgeable on the game themselves, and ultimately just kind of throwing in what amounted to a few kind of tokenistic gestures to people who were actually quite interested in what was going on. So that would be my only overall criticism of the World Championships of Warhammer sequence. I think Games Workshop just really, 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 you know, were unreasonable to their staff, asking them to work as many hours or expecting them to do as many hours as they did. I'm hopeful that, you know, Eddie and Paul, in terms of loo days or whatever, were able to, you know, take the rest of the week off or something, as at least in terms of repayment for all the effort they're putting in. Because I'm not a fan of seeing that kind of thing where basically, you know, a staff member is basically having to do those kind of hours. That's worrying to see. But other than that, mild little cloud. I thought they did a pretty good job. But overall, as reveals go, a pretty weak one overall. I'd say it was, you know, I think the Flesh Eater Courts really elevated it. But if that wasn't as strong as it was, I'd say it was definitely one of the weaker ones. But yeah, mid is probably what I would say in closing. How about you, Phil?
I really liked it. I don't think every single one can be a big reveal in terms of, oh, it's a new edition of a game, it's a Primarch model, like, you know, that kind of level of, you know, high stakes preview. So in that respect, I think it was pretty solid. I think the Flesh Eater Courts really was like the star winner, especially with the Mortarch mini being outstanding. Obviously, you had the giant Tomb King at the end as well, which I guess was meant to be a bit more, you know, the big reveal at the very end, or maybe it's because Old World always seems to end up at the very end because they did that in the last previews. I think there was a couple of sort of spoilers going around, like maybe an hour or so before the actual shows happened. I remember seeing a couple of people chat about that, but I never saw any of it myself. So that's good, because I hate it when stuff gets spoiled and it feels like they've got a bit more of a lid on it lately. I don't know if that's just my general impression of it. So that's always good. Didn't watch any of the streams, so I can't commentate on that whatsoever. I did see that they did a kind of live blog of the narrative, but I never read any of it. It's like some of the pictures are kind of cool. It would have been great if they did like a little video recap of it, because I think they'd done that last year, which might help sort of sell you what's going on a bit better. So that would be cool. And it feels like the production value they put in the narrative stuff looks really high, and would be great if Warhammer World could emulate that as well. If they did a similar event in the UK, that would be awesome. I think in general, maybe the Americans just really embrace cosplay. I don't want to say more than the UK, because actually at Warhammer Fest there was tons of cosplayers, so maybe I'm just talking nonsense, but it feels like the narrative team, sort of narrative events that attract more cosplay type things happening for regular players, not just dedicated cosplayers doing that as an aside from the actual gaming.
I mean, I have to be honest with you, the cosplay elements of narrative gaming really underwhelm me. Like, I don't really need to be sat across from someone dressed as an elf. Like, no, I don't need that. I just want to see it on the tabletop. You know, I want to see beautifully crafted scenarios, tables, armies, you know, and I like the idea of being immersed in the world. I like a little bit of, like, you know, role play in there, like scene setting, that stuff. But I don't need the narrative to be delivered by someone wearing, you know, a traitor guardsman costume or whatever. Like, I don't need that, but I do need a little bit of the kind of theatre of the mind in it, I think. And I think ultimately, if it is that, you know, the tables are gorgeous, the armies are beautiful, and the scenarios are really fun and dynamic and engaging, and there are these kind of coherent themes running throughout the games, that's great. But yeah, the cosplay element, like, because that seems to be the thing they leverage a lot in the photographs, is like, look, everyone, people dressed up. I was like, I don't really care. Like, well done you for dressing up, but like, it's more, you know, narrative to me is more about the narrative. It's not just cosplay.
Yes,
cosplay's
that's
nice.
true. And I feel like in a way it's a barrier to entry if you feel like you have to dress up to play a game of 40k, because, you know, not everyone wants to do that. I don't, as nice as in my mind I like the idea of dressing up as a Krieg player or something, that would be fun. But yeah, I just don't have time to do that, or the, let's say, maybe creative energy to put into doing a costume. And a lot of people will be similar, but if you can do it, amazing. If you're the event organizers and you want to do that to, you know, explain the mission format to your team dressed as a character, I think that's kind of cool. I don't mind that.
I agree.
Especially because, you know, if you do it in like sort of a video format that's been pre-recorded, that's cool. If you're doing it live and in person, that's also quite cool, I think. But you as a player, yeah, I don't think you should sort of expect that from anyone. I mean, it's kind of cool if someone wants to do it, I guess. But at the same time, as long as the effort is there more in the models on the tabletop, that's what I'd like to see. And even if it's just like the character that you're bringing to, you know, your warlord on the table, and that you've got a good backstory for your army, stuff like that, I think is more important.
I mean, I remember, Phil, we went up to Warhammer World one random like Saturday or something in like June, and there was a Lord of the Rings event going on, and it was absolutely sweltering. And there was a guy playing with like the trees, and he was himself dressed as a tree.
Yes, I remember.
And I mean, I had a lot of respect for that individual, because they were clearly sweating buckets in their elaborate tree costume. But, you know, all that, you know, notwithstanding, I do think, as I say, the thing for me when it comes to the narrative stuff is I want that narrative to play out on the tabletop. I don't need to see the cosplay element. Although, again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the cosplay. I think it's amazing. I think if you want to express yourself in that way, 100% encourage it. You know, I absolutely love it. I think people dressing up in these as their favorite characters, bringing these ideas to life that way, enhancing the gameplay through it, is an amazing thing. But it's just interesting to me because that seems like the thing that gets leveraged most of all by Games Workshop. It's like, look, it's It's narrative. It's live action. It's live action role play. It's not live action role play. It's Warhammer narrative. It's like it's it's a different sort of vibe. But overall, I think those are my only real criticisms. I just think like Games Workshop massively need to invest in like the production of those broadcasts and just be better at showcasing the stuff. I think at the end of the day, the way they kind of wing it by basically expecting their staff to work unreasonable hours in unreasonable conditions is not something that should be applauded. And I think they need to basically invest in better infrastructure and systems to create a better broadcast. And I think ultimately, as I said before, the way I would look at it is I'd probably look at, having 5 different games being kind of streamed simultaneously. I'd have 5 different commentary teams whose jobs it is to understand and monitor the ebb and flow of gameplay. I'd have a main presenter team that would essentially cut to those different commentary teams who could offer insights on what's happened and then ultimately hype up what was occurring in that moment. And I'd also look at having like roaming reporters that could capture, video packages and create general kind of fluff pieces to kind of sell the overall kind of excitement and enthusiasm of the event, because not everyone is playing on the top 5 tables. Not everyone is able to, be at the top of their game. So it's good to kind of bring those events to life in that way. And then as a kind of, closing statement to all of that, I guess, I'd have just your sort of main presenter teams bring it all together. And I think it'd just be a better sort of production overall. I think if they could do something like that to really kind of bring it to life. I accept and acknowledge that costs a lot of money. But, Games Workshop objectively have those funds. And I think it would be better for the overall kind of quality of their broadcast. Because the truth is, right, not a lot of people watched that stream because it was actually quite boring. Some of the games, the final games between Manny and John Lennon were really, really compelling in the closing moments. But a lot of it was just people speculating what the heck was going on while 2 individuals debated with themselves for periods of time up to 30 minutes about how they were going to move their army. And it's like,
and not actually moving them because it's
because they're using the time the best they can, and like because they know how important it is. Like you would basically, there were just long periods of nothing happening. Whereas if you had multiple games and multiple teams, you could move around
between it, do interviews and stuff like that. Because I totally get what you're saying is a great idea, and as you say, very expensive to do. However, this is pitched as the World Championships of every kind of game system. It was like Warhammer 40k. I don't know if it had a Heresy as well, did it?
No, it didn't have Heresy. It just had AOS, Kill Team, and
had would have had I assume Kill Team.
I think Underworlds were in it as well.
Yeah. And this is meant to be like World Championship, so it's like the best of the best, the biggest kind of competitive gaming event that Games Workshop does in the world. This is a showpiece for them to effectively sell you their own smaller events to win the golden ticket to go try and go to this event in future. So yeah, in a way, anything you do production value for this event is just promo for everything you're doing for next year. So yeah, I can see why actually it'd be a good idea to sort of invest in the staff and resources to make this a bit of a showstopper. And yeah, the stuff was on, but yeah, I was never compelled to or excited to go and click and watch any of those things. And maybe that's the difficult bit, because there's probably lots of people like me that have watched lots of live streams in the past, but just for whatever reason isn't that interested in it at the moment. And there was no reason to go, oh yeah, let's check this out. That would be really interesting. Are you there?
Yeah, gotta be honest, no idea what Phil just said there, but it sounds like we got to the end of it. Right, Phil?
Yes, yeah. We completed it.
We completed it, mate. There you are. That is us talking about Warhammer community stuff. Blah, 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 blah. You hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. Good times all round. Yay, Warhammer. Right, Phil?
Exactly. Yeah, exciting stuff that came out for sure.
boosh. Transitional noise. Hey all, this is our obligatory, necessary Instagram review because Legatus. How are you saying that, Phil?
Yeah, Legatus. Yeah.
Legatus_Brutus was kind enough to leave us a 5-star review on Audible of Australia. And as a result, we were on a bound, Phil, to go onto Instagram and look at their Instagram account and talk about what we see there. Isn't that right?
As we always do.
As we always do. So if you would like to, get some self-promotion, you need only leave us a 5-star review, mention your Instagram, and we will do this. Talk about your stuff. I'm noticing a theme with old Brutus, and that theme is obviously Space Wolves. And quite pretty a Space Wolf at that.
Oh, well, I think actually you're incorrect. The theme is bluey-grey power armor because the Primaris minis are actually Emperor's Eagles, which I'm assuming, and I tried to look it up, is a homebrew chapter. The bottom half is Space Wolves, but the top half in the same color scheme, and I assume a successor chapter to Space Wolves, is Emperor's Eagles, which is very cool.
Very cool. Very cool indeed. I hadn't even clocked that they had opted to do something of their own creation, although heavily inspired by the Space Wolf color scheme, it's fair to say.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's basically the same color scheme, but with different chapter markings and stuff like that.
Indeed. I mean, their very first post was all the way back on the 28th of August this year. And it's fair to say that their Instagram game isn't necessarily popping off right now. They're not even following anyone. They don't even follow this podcast, Phil. I'm starting to question.
How dare they? Because we have now followed them, so it's
Exactly.
a legally binding contract that they follow us back. That would be kind.
I totally 100% agree with that statement, Phil. They will need to follow us back post-haste. Otherwise, we will, I don't know. I don't know what we could do in response to that. I guess just unfollow them.
Yes, I guess that is possible.
Don't make us do it, Brutus. Don't do it. But sincerely, some of the newer posts, because it's, relatively clear that this individual probably had like a backlog of miniatures and imagery, because we're going from old sort of firstborn Marines all the way up to these newer Primaris Marines.
So
slightly better looking backdrops, right, Phil?
Yeah, the Space Wolf stuff is sort of backdated to 2018, 2019, and is there a bit of 2020 in there? Yes, a little bit of 2020, and then everything else onwards is also from the end of 2020 onwards is the Primaris Emperor's Eagles. That's all stunning. The very first Emperor's Eagles he's posted is a chaplain with a very cool sort of double-sided axe conversion, which I really love. That's very clever. Suitably Space Wolf looking still with the face and stuff. But yeah, the axe is sweet, so I love it. And the paint scheme is fantastic. So he's certainly progressed from the firstborn to the Primaris in terms of the level of detail that they're putting in on their painting. So it's, definitely worth checking out. And I kind of hope that they do more. I really like it. I'd love to see some vehicles as well. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I can only echo that sentiment. I think these are just some really, really clean and really nice looking Space Marine minis. I think, ultimately just an excellent job. again, like the color scheme is obviously tried and true in the sense that it is essentially a variant of the Space Wolf scheme. But it looks really nice and has been just implemented really well. I like all of the kind of crisp highlights, the really nice kind of weathering details. Everything that's gone into these is really, really great. Definitely encourage listeners to go check it out. The link will be in the description of this podcast. But again, as I say, it is Legatus _ Brutus, which is LEGATUS _BRUTUS on Instagram. Or if you're following Lookout Sir on Instagram, go into the section where it says who we're following. And hopefully with the way that works, you might be able to find that there as well. Or alternatively, just click the link in the description below, because this is definitely an Instagram account worthy of being followed, and definitely really excited to see what they do in the future. Again, because it's so kind of one note and so kind of consistent, there's not really more than you can say other than that flipping heck, these are some really nice looking Space Marine minis. Keep it up is pretty much as I can offer.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like they've even got some really nice non-metallic metal on the blade guard shields trim. This is really gorgeous. If you like your Space Wolves or Space Marines in general, definitely worth a follow, and hopefully that would encourage them to post more, because I love it and would like to see more for sure.
100%. I echo that sentiment entirely. But there you go. That was our review of Legatus _ Brutus's Instagram account. At the time of recording, has 14 followers and follows no one. So hopefully when next we return to this account, we see that increase to as many as 16 followers. Could you imagine?
Exactly. Heady heights and one follow, which will be Lookout Sir.
Absolutely. Get it done. Otherwise, we'll take it all away. Oh, the things we'll do. Anyway, transitional noise. And that's it, everybody. The end of episode 169, though you know better than that. It is, in fact, the time when me and Phil go into our outro. Right, Phil?
It is indeed.
A magical time for all and sundry.
Exactly.
Indeed. So, probably one of the things we should talk about, Phil, is it is Christmas. And because it is Christmas, It is a time where you and I reflect on the year's events, as well as our plans for the future. Those who are regular listeners to the podcast will not be unaware of us having similar conversations around this time every year, where we essentially look at what we've done, what we've achieved, and ultimately evaluate how we want to approach things going forwards. I like to think, Phil, we found a good rhythm with the general content output and sort of supporting methodology that we use in order to bring it to life. I think there are some things that we definitely could do better. I think I, for one, have been not quite as available and as able to, support the podcast in the ways that I have in the past. It's been a very demanding year for me. But what's your general vibe on, the year 2023 through the lens of Lookout Sir? Are you happy with how it's progressing? Is there anything that you're particularly, proud of or concerned about, I suppose?
Well, as always, we've been pretty consistent in our output in terms of what we've been putting out. That's been great. We've been doing a lot of Codex episodes, it feels like, this year. Not maybe as much as last year, but we've done all the... We finished off the 10th Ed stuff. Sorry, the 9th Ed stuff, which was getting a bit tiresome by the end, so I'm glad we've hit the nail on that coffin. The 10th Ed stuff, I think we're doing it in a much more breezy manner, which I actually prefer. It does mean I've got to read everything up front, but actually there's overall less content to read because the codexes aren't as in-depth from a rules point of view, so I think that's actually much more easier to go through. And yeah, I think we're going to be freed up a bit more to do some more off the wall, random content discussions and stuff like that. And I think this year we've also been willing to dabble a little bit more outside the 40k remit, talk a bit about AOS, because that's actually one of the games we've been playing a lot more of this year than 40k. I guess we've also got Legions Imperialis as well now, so maybe we'll be talking about that at some point in a bit more detail. I think the one thing we've probably lacked on is our Patreon exclusive content. We did try and have a lofty ambition of doing one thing every month. I think we maybe got about a 50% record at best on that, and the last few months have just been a bit too busy for both of us. We've literally just been treading water trying to get the podcast out, let alone, unfortunately, be able to do anything above and beyond that. We do still have the Primaris ranking video, which is slightly out of date now, but that's due to come out at some point in the future.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Phil. I definitely think that, if we look back at the things that we said that we were going to achieve this year, I think we stayed true to the majority of them, but we definitely fell short on the Patreon side of things. Patreon is actually something that is really new for us. I, in particular, was kind of pushing against it for a while. I'm never really, that big of a fan of looking to kind of rattle the tin can over the internet, so to speak. I think ultimately, we do this podcast, we create this because of a kind of passion and enthusiasm for the hobby. And ultimately, it's something that I think positively contributes to both of our, lives in so many ways. And, financial gain was never really our goal with this, but it definitely got to a point where having the support of patrons certainly shored up our ability to continue supporting the podcast in the way we wanted to. I think ultimately for us, it was becoming challenging to justify the level of expense that the podcast demanded every year, not least the time that it takes, but also the costs that are kind of taken on as well. So having the support of patrons and being able to essentially support the podcast in the way that we are is really valued and really appreciated. So obviously, huge thank you to everyone who is supporting us on Patreon. We honestly mean to do everything we can to kind of give back to you guys and to ultimately allow you to kind of reap some benefits from that membership, not just, the warm, fuzzy feels of feeling, like you're supporting people that you believe in and a project that is, valuable to you, but also knowing that, we, really value that and that we're doing our utmost to try and give back wherever possible. And I do have some very real aspirations for that next year. I don't necessarily want to go into them in detail right now because I think one of the biggest problems with all this sort of stuff is the over-promising, under-delivering situation. So I don't want to kind of say, we're definitely doing this or we're definitely doing that. But I would like to do more with, merchandise type related things for patrons. I'd love to be in a situation where, we could kind of take stock of people who have supported us and the periods of time they've supported us during and reward them with, some kind of trinket. Equally, I'm very keen on the idea of doing an event. I think a Lookout Sir event would be a really, really great thing. And me and Phil have had conversations about those in the past and are still very keen to try and support those. So we're looking at that as a very real possibility in 2024. And the goal would be, at least in theory, that we make it exclusively available to patrons and that it ultimately be a first come, first serve, but ultimately free event for what, limited quantity of patrons that we could admit. So again, that's something that we're, reviewing, evaluating, considering. But yeah, I mean, I think given everything that's been going on outside of the podcast this year, I think it's a real accomplishment that we've maintained our release schedule, that we kept everything going. I mean, good Lord, Phil, we've had some wobbly ones this year. Most recently, that episode that was so heavily impacted by your microphone issues and combined with other kind of technical things, it was wild, right? We've definitely been challenged this year.
Yes, that was a frustrating technical issue. Glad it's all resolved, though. So the less said about it, the better.
Oh, 100%, mate. 100%. But that's the thing, right? Like, that's what I really value about how you and I approach this. And I think it is the thing that has led to us being successful in this space. It's been consistency. I mean, there are a great many people producing this type of content, talk show style content on YouTube. And obviously they're producing really great numbers because they have that kind of YouTube presence. But, the kind of product that we are bringing to market, if you will, the kind of show that we are creating, I really respect and value the fact that we are staying very true to ourselves with what we're creating, and that what we're delivering is still in every way, shape and form a traditional podcast, that we've not, necessarily tried to reshape or change what we are and, alter our output to, potentially chase after what could perceptually be stated as being more lucrative types of output. I think where we're at and the kind of niche that we've carved out, but also the audience that we've cultivated, is really valued and appreciated by both of us. So, yeah, I think overall, man, I mean, it's all just posy vibes at the moment, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's, I think we're in a good spot with it. So I think, I mean, if anyone was in any way curious, I'm pretty comfortable with, the fact that we're going to be committing to another full year of Lookout Sir. I don't think there's any risk of us downing tools in 2024. Who knows what the future holds after that? That's always the thing that we want to sort of address when having these conversations. It's a chance, I suppose, for me and Phil to kind of touch base and reassert our kind of commitment to one another and to you, the listener. It's like a vow renewal, right, Phil?
That's true. I thought you were going to say you reassert your dominance over me, forcing me to do this podcast for yet another year.
Maybe that is part of the process as well. The dark pact ritual that we are engaged in. You're there like some kind of poor fool being like, "Please release me," and I'm just there like, "One more year, Phil. One more year." Exactly. You said that last year.
Exactly. I've always said it. So long as the 5-star reviews keep coming in, we keep doing the show. Basically, I'm more than happy with that never-ending commitment. I guess the one slight change that we might do, I don't know, we've sort of loosely discussed it, is whether we drop the 40K title of the Lookout Server 40K podcast, because maybe we just become a bit more of a Warhammer podcast. We embrace the branding that Games Workshop have done, and maybe we'd do a little bit more of other game systems. Or do we just stay as a 40K podcast? I'd be quite interested to hear what the listeners have said. When we have done AOS segments before, we've always sort of made a point of that, and we've always had relatively positive feedback about it. So, I'd be quite curious to hear people's thoughts on that. And yours as well, Dan.
Well, I'm always in favour of having my cake and eating it too. And Warhammer 40,000 is the most popular of Games Workshop systems. So continuing to be called the Warhammer 40,000 podcast is a positive algorithmic thing, right? Like, it helps us to be seen as a Warhammer 40,000 podcast. But because we are a Warhammer 40,000 podcast that is able to, through the work that we've done, talk about the broad spectrum of Warhammer systems, I think we're kind of in a situation where if we were to change the name of the podcast to Lookout Sir Warhammer Podcast, for example, it would only be a subtle change. And I think we've cultivated enough of an audience and a regular listenership that it wouldn't be a massive negative to us. But it might damage us algorithmically, SEO-y, to remove the 40K from the title because, potentially we draw in more of an audience because more people are looking for 40K content than just generic Warhammer content. But at the same time, I don't really care that much one way or the other. I think, you know, in all sincerity, based on what we produce and where we're at with the hobby today, I think we should call it Look Out Sir, the Warhammer podcast, because we're not exclusively a Warhammer 40,000 podcast anymore. It's so evident that that is the case. We talk extensively about all systems. Now, do we go into the same level of depth in AOS, for example? Will we be starting to look to do Age of Sigmar Codex reviews type content? Maybe, but I'm not sure, really. I think, you know, AOS has always been a kind of supplementary part of my hobby, and I think it's very much the same for yourself and other members of like the broader LOS family. So I don't know at the moment. I don't know really what the pros and cons are. I think truly it would make sense if we changed it to Look Out Sir Warhammer podcast. But at the same time, I don't think it really matters that much either, because I think 40K is still at the heart of what we do.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I don't know.
I think if as nice of an idea it is to do AOS battle tome reviews, I don't think we have the capacity to review every single one that comes out, as well as every single 40K codex that comes out, unless we were to really streamline the format of maybe the AOS ones. I think we should, when AOS 4, assuming it does come out next year, we do a big thing for when that comes out. I think that makes sense, because obviously we're invested in the game system, so that's the sort of, you know, this podcast is about us sharing the hobby that we love. If that also includes us talking about, you know, the particular battle tomes that we collect, so for example, Oryx and Nighthaunt, for example, I don't mind that either. Doing every single one just seems like madness, especially when, AOS 4 comes. That means all the new codexes are coming out. We've sort of been in a nice privilege this year where all the battle tomes have been out for the most part, and actually it's mostly been the campaign books, which we sort of occasionally reference that we've been buying, or we talked about the very first one when that came out, and that's been a much more sort of slower pace than a battle tome release will be. So yeah, I'd like to do a little bit more AOS when AOS 4 picks up, I think, next year. But as you're right, I think we are and will always be predominantly a 40K led podcast.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it as well, mate. I think ultimately, you know, no need to fix what's not broken, I think, in that sense. I think, you know, I'm really happy with the sort of content we're creating around 10th edition at the minute. I think, you know, the thing with 10th edition as a system at the moment is that it is definitely needing a little bit more love and attention from GW in terms of making it into a more compelling game system overall. I think AOS has been a real breath of fresh air because it is a really fun and engaging game with a lot of really amazing and, you know, over the top kind of worlds and, you know, things to kind of discover and explore. So I've been really excited about that and engaged in that. And I think, you know, conversely, 10th edition has not really kind of utterly wowed me just yet, but I continue to engage with it and I continue to enjoy it, just not as much as I've enjoyed other systems. So I think, you know, my hope is that throughout the span of 24, we start to see some really meaningful improvements to 40K, and it'll be fun to document those and to kind of go through it. I think the thing that I want to see for us in 24 is an attempt to do more of the kind of original content that we were doing before. I think historically, when, you know, certainly I had more capacity from an editing perspective, I was able to do more to try and produce more kind of elaborate segments. I'd like to, and again, I need to talk to Richie about this, but I'd love to move into a scenario where we were bringing back more regular quiz segments. I think that would be really valuable if we were able to do like a quarterly quiz, for example, or even just a seasonal one. So, you know, at the end of March, doing a winter quiz or, you know.
I was going to say, Dan, we've got to do the January spring quiz.
The January spring quiz, yes, absolutely, in line with the poor date keeping of Games Workshop's marketing department. But no, I think that's the thing. I think it would be nice to sort of leverage some of those more, you know, kind of flamboyant aspects of the pod, and again try and leverage some more of the kind of members of the cast and crew, as it were. I still think, Tim is a really, really great guy who always has a really interesting perspective on the hobby, the lore, and is very passionate about, expressing himself through the armies he creates and collects and the narratives that he layers into them. So I'd love to see an opportunity for him to, maybe make more appearances, and I'd love, Richie to come on more and contribute. I think those things are, things that we've definitely been able to use less this year, but I think it would be really great if those guys were able to be used more and make more, irregular appearances. So yeah, I think that's the thing, really. I think where I'm at with it at the moment is that, I think it's been a really interesting year for the hobby and for this podcast. I'm really happy with where we're at from an audience perspective. I think, we've definitely reached a lot of people, and we've made some really big milestones this year. I mean, we're closing in, Phil, on 500,000 downloads. Are you aware of this?
Only because you vaguely mentioned it a couple of days ago, but yeah, that's quite a mad achievement.
Yeah, I mean, 500,000 downloads, mate, is just an incredible accomplishment for a podcast that is, about such a kind of specialist topic. We're very prominently featured now on, charts, and obviously there are people now who are very kindly featuring us in the top 3 of all Warhammer podcasts. I think we just get onto a place, mate, where just the diligent time and investment that we've spent in just building this podcast, building this community, building this audience is really getting to a kind of point where it's not necessarily paying off, so to speak, but it's getting to a place where, I think now we are, a very well-known and, dare I say, respected entity within the broader Warhammer 40,000 and Games Workshop Warhammer scene, and that's a really wonderful place to be. I'm really appreciate that so many people value our insights, and it's amazing to hear from people who say that we've helped them deal with their own kind of personal traumas and issues and other things. And I really value and appreciate the fact that people have found solace and strength in listening to us prattle on about things that we're passionate about. So yeah, that's really my main takeaway from it at the minute. Is I'm really excited to put in another year into this and to really kind of push for some really great output. I feel like realistically I'd like it if we could really kind of zero in on each episode being not much more than 4 hours. I think just knowing how much my time is stretched and other things at the moment, I think rather than being in a situation where we tend to hit 4 hours, but more often than not we produce 5 to 6 hours, those extra hours of output is quite a toll on my personal life, shall we say. So maybe I can do a bit better at being disciplined, but at the same time I don't want to kind of dictate or fix any kind of time scale on episodes, because the fact is, mate, is I just love chatting about this stuff, and sometimes it's just great to sit here and chat with you for hours and hours about things that we're collectively passionate about. But other times, I worry that it can sometimes maybe come across like I'm sort of like forcing the enthusiasm, or I'm pushing myself to get another hour of content done. I think that's maybe more what I mean, is I need to get to a point where I'm brave enough that I can turn around and feel comfortable putting out a 2.5 hour episode every now and again, and not feel like I'm letting people down because of it. Because at the end of the day, a 2.5 hour episode is still probably more than most people are putting out. It's kind of, I suppose what I'm saying is, it's kind of like the points I was making about, how like Games Workshop have decided to give Tyranids like 6 different detachments. And I was like, well, sometimes you don't need 6, sometimes you just need 4. I think that's true also of what we're doing. Sometimes.
Yes, but they had 5, if you remember.
What, Tyranids? No, they had 6, didn't they?
No, because everything normally has 6, but Tyranids weirdly had 5.
I thought it was that Space Marines had 7 and Tyranids had 6.
Oh God, was it? Oh,
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Maybe that was it. I knew there was one of them that had more than the other, or less.
Indeed. Anyway, long story short is that what I'm saying is I think we just got into a place now where, like, I think people know what we're about. We're very well established now. Like, people have made their judgment on us, right? We're not everything to everyone. Not everyone who likes Warhammer likes Lookout Sir. And that's a great thing. There's so much content out there. There's so many incredible creators doing amazing work. We're really grateful to be considered by some as being one of those, creators. So yeah, from my perspective, mate, at the moment, the thing I'm really focusing on this year is just trying to reconnect with some of those elements that I guess kind of got us to the dance, really trying to kind of like break into more kind of expressive, creative, fun stuff that's a little bit different rather than just formulaically going through it all the time,
fair enough. I guess on my part on that, I would like to see us do more community engagement. Like we used to do community questions quite a lot, especially with the Codex reviews, and then we just stopped doing them for a while. So it'd be good to go back to doing that. And that was always something that was always like a nice perk for the patrons as well, that we gave them a chance to ask us questions as well. So yeah, it'd be nice to do stuff like that going forwards a bit more as well.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. No, I think that's a really good shout as well, and I think that's the sort of stuff that, like you say, or as I was saying already, the sort of stuff that kind of got us to the dance, I suppose. Right? It's those things that will be, really, really cool to see. But so it's the Christmas season's coming up, the holiday season, I guess. Christmas is on a Monday this year, Monday the 25th. The meaning that the last episode of Lookout Sir that will be coming before Christmas is on the 16th. And then I think we'll probably seek to do a roundup sort of short form episode on the 30th. And then if we're able, this is December, by the way, so 16th will be like a full-fledged Lookout Sir episode. 23rd will probably, hopefully be, or rather maybe Monday the 25th. One of the days in between will be the Christmas quiz. We'll try and get it in and around the Christmas window. Maybe Saturday the 23rd is a good milestone to push for, but we'll see where we land. Saturday the 30th will be our kind of like, short form roundup episode thing. And then, as is somewhat of a tradition, I would say, we'll give ourselves a little bit more time between the 30th and coming back in January. So I think we'll either come back January the 20th or January the 27th, depending on what the general vibe is. Again, we'll try and keep people appraised on all of this as we go forwards. I mean, for many of you, I'm sure you're not necessarily, waiting by the calendar, looking to see when the latest uploads will be. But yeah, we tend to like to try and give ourselves a little bit of flex over the holiday period. To obviously recharge the batteries and re-engage with our lives outside of podcast creation. So yeah, I think ultimately we try and reward ourselves with a week off, right, Phil?
Well, I think we don't normally do an end of the year episode. We normally have a break sort of pre-Christmas, and then I think last year we came back on this year we came back on the 14th. So we had Christmas off, New Year's off, and then an extra week or whatever before coming back, basically. Because I think January's business as usual for most people, so I don't see why we should have most of January off.
That's fair. I was just sort of thinking about where the weeks sit with it.
Fair enough.
But I mean, again, mate, we'll figure it out. Let's not. We won't be rigid about it. This is the joy of this process, I suppose. Maybe we'll sack off the idea of trying to churn anything out on the 30th. Maybe we'll just we'll hit the 16th, do the Christmas quiz on the 23rd, not put anything out on the 30th, dodge the 6th, and come back from the 13th.
Yeah, I think that was that's more consistent with what we did last year. I think then.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And it probably means that, it means you're just sort of getting back into the swing of it in a reasonable fashion. So,
Get those January previews to talk about, no doubt. There'll be something of interest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, we'll stick to the fortnightly release schedule in 2024. I don't think there's any need to change that up. Again, we like to sort of say that we kind of mix it up. So if there was really a desperate need for us to put something out outside of that cadence, then we would do. But we've kind of found really now that we're in the rhythm with how we've done it this year that, fortnightly, it just works, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't seem that given the kind of creators that we are, the kind of, podcast that we are, that, people desperately need us to be there day and date. We used to think that we needed to kind of try and capitalize on things, but most of the time, I think we're all right just, keeping to that regular release schedule and if it is that we're a week late to the party, then so be it, I guess.
Well, exactly. So this episode, we're talking about the Warhammer previews, which came out 2 weeks ago. So, we're not particularly timely on some of the topics, but I think they're always topics we want to talk about. So,
yeah, exactly right.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, mate. Absolutely. So yeah, that's it in terms of the Christmassy and or reflecting on future happenings side of things. So I mean, obviously, look, I mean, just to close on that topic, I mean, again, just to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been with us throughout the year. Again, obviously, if this is the first episode of Lookout Sir you've ever listened to, welcome. We hope that you've enjoyed it and that, you'll want to stay. But for, everyone else who's been here for a long time and has listened to a lot of these episodes, again, hugely appreciate it. It's a real labor of love. This, me and Phil put a lot of time, effort and energy into it. It's fair to say that we both have our ebbs and our flows with it. Sometimes, I'm less infused about it than Phil and vice versa, but we all sort of do a good job of picking ourselves up and supporting one another and keeping the momentum alive, really. So, it's been a really, really valuable part of my day-to-day, and hopefully it's been great for you also. So, huge thank you to everyone who's been listening. And, obviously, as we head into, this Christmas period, we hope that you're obviously all having a great time and that, you're able to really, enjoy the upcoming holiday period. And it's exciting, man. It's a great time of the year. The lights are on, big meals and chocolate. What more do you want, eh?
I don't know. No, I can't think of anything.
That's it, mate.
Got it all.
It's got it all. Anything from you, Phil, or should we just move on to some general topics?
Let's talk about some general stuff. I think we've talked about Christmassy retrospective enough.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. We went out to Warhammer World, didn't we? That was fun. Good old times. I, had a birthday recently, so
happy birthday, Dan. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I mean, again, like you said, it was like 2 weeks ago now, but it did happen. We marked the occasion as friends with a trip to Warhammer World. We'll be doing the same for you soon, won't we, Phil?
I mean, I hope so. That would be nice.
No, I hope so too, mate. I hope so too. What restaurant will you be picking for that occasion?
But not Reds. I mean, as lovely as that one was, let's do something else. The old classic, probably.
The old classic, absolutely. Everyone's favourite. That'll be great, man. I'm looking forward to that. We got Age of Sigmar doubles coming up, so hopefully maybe we'll get a chance to play a bit more of that around the corner. I've assembled and based all of my naughty boys now, Phil. They're all here. I've got to do some last Xenofold undercoats on the troops and the big lizard creature. I don't know what this thing is called. Maybe you can see it in the camera, Phil. This lizard beast.
Is it? It's a swamp something, or other,
yeah, Swamp Boss Scumdrek. That's its name.
Oh, nice.
There it is. Beautiful sculpt, mate. Like, I mean, utterly amazing. Like, this is this is quite a thing. So yeah, really anticipating smashing those out over the coming weeks, and hopefully being able to take to the tabletop and maybe do a little bit better than you and I did last year. Do you remember when we came last year, Phil? I don't even remember.
God, I think
We didn't
it was
do well.
like it was probably like 10th from the bottom or something. I don't think it was much better than that. We won 2 though. I think we won 2, lost 3.
We won 2, lost 3. Yeah,
which isn't too bad for our first ever time. I mean, that was literally my first ever game of AOS was the practice game on Friday evening, so I was coming in fresh.
We didn't understand how the detachments worked. We were a bit kind of
well, we got quite a few things wrong in the pretty much most games.
Things wrong, yeah. And to be fair to us, Phil, the only people we really lost to were very, very good players. Like we lost to 2 lads who, by their own admission, played a lot in a competitive sense, and they had brought a very well optimized competitive list. So they had Fire Slayers and Idenef, and they had some really good competitive comp going into that. Game 2, we lucked out and we came up against another set of players who were also very new to the game and not very experienced like ourselves. And I think we just got the luck of the draw. We just did quite a good job on maneuvering, so it worked out really well. Game 3, we came up against, again, a super optimized competitive build of Soulblight Gravelords and
Idenef
Teepkin, which just, those guys totally duffed us up. And then the next day we played against Steve from the Warhammer World events team and his son, and that's probably still my favorite game of Warhammer I played all year. I think that was truly spectacular. I had a really great time with that.
That was Gargant's and what are they called? Ogre,
More Tribe.
Tribe,
yeah. So yeah, and that was a great game. Again, utterly pushed it to the limit. I think by the end we lost by like 2 points or something.
I think it was down to basically the very last turn. I think it was actually down to who won the priority, because we could have won it if we had won the priority, but we didn't. So yeah, that one went to them. But that was a great game.
Yeah, and then the last game we won, but we won it by basically like choking out the board, didn't we?
Yes, so that was Stormcast Eternal and Fire Slayers.
Yeah.
And we'd box them in the corner for 90% of the game, yes. And we played it safe at the very end because we're like, if we just stand here and not attack you, which is a bit boring, we're going to score more points. Yeah. I mean, we were well ahead anyway, but it just meant they couldn't ever conceivably catch up to win.
Yeah, it was wild, right? I mean, to be fair though, Phil, as well, if I remember correctly, your deep strike charge, the survivability of your lieutenant character, the guy on horse, was unbelievable. Like that basically was what won us that game, was the fact that somehow miraculously you just passed every disgusting whatever it was, the
reward saves. I just rolled a lot of 6s or maybe 5s because I gave him the discorporate ability. So I charged in against a kind of crossbow unit that was like super killy. And yes, they did the Overwatch, let's say, for 40k terminology, Unleash Hell, and knocked him down to all but 1 wound, I think. But in doing so, managed to tag them and eventually tie them up for a bit longer. And that kind of scuppered all their plans, basically. And I had other units that failed the charge, but was still a threat for them. And I think by the end of the game, all of your stuff was dead, and I had just a couple of units left alive, and that was enough. And because they had done some odd stuff where they could have not easily won the game, but they could have done some stuff to score some points. Like they had moved, like they teleported 1 unit around to our side of the table, but then they just left them there, and they didn't move them to be a threat to the midboard at all. So there was some stuff that we were like, why haven't they done anything with these guys and stuff? So, I think just, a couple of, easy mistakes to make. But we'd also done a blinder turn 1 basically on them, which put them on the back foot. So that made it a bit more difficult for them to kind of catch up.
I mean, that Maw Crusher was surprisingly quick, it's fair to say.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good.
He's a speedy cabbage. Anyway, yeah, so super excited about that. Me and Phil probably won't be playing together at that one, but that is somewhat undetermined. Me and Sean were talking as if me and Sean were playing together, but then other people have also been speaking as if they're playing together. So I don't want to kind of presume. I quite like the idea of us all rocking up, and essentially because we're going to end up with we've got 2 Soulblight Gravelord players who won't be doubling up because you want to have unique factions. So we essentially have to be like Tom, Sean, and then maybe you, Phil. Basically, we'll have 3 deaf players who essentially have to like we'll line up in a thing, and someone gets like first pick, and they can pick who they go with. I guess.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. So
who doesn't want me?
So me, Richie, and Tim will have to
draw short straws.
Yeah.
See who gets it. Yeah, okay, that could be. I mean, that's a completely madness, but I also don't. I'm not obliged to it because I don't think anyone is tailoring their army to be optimized with their partner, even though that's probably how you're meant to do a doubles event. We're taking what we want as our own isolation of 1,000 points, and yeah, so it doesn't actually matter who we get paired up with.
Exactly, that's basically it. We can all operate with each other. Although, to be fair, mine is a little bit more infantry heavy. I've got 1 monster in the swamp boss, but I mean, it would be good to like. For me, I definitely benefit from being partnered up with like some cavalry and some and a bit of a bit of like of a body count to help with keeping people off certain units. But that, to be honest with you, is the Soulblight Gravelord archetype, right? Like basically, if it's Danvers or if it's Sean,
if it's or me, we've all got cavalry.
Exactly.
I don't really have many bodies other than the cavalry, though. Whereas those 2 will lean into that a bit more, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas Richie and Tim are much more like foot sloggers.
Yeah, me too. Really, I mean, I'm pretty much the same. So yeah, so I think wherever the dice falls, as it were, it will be pretty complimentary on that side of things. But yes, that's exciting. That's going to be cool. I became aware of something weird, by the way, Phil. It only occurred to me while I was at Warhammer World yesterday. I was looking around at all the different bits and pieces. I hadn't clocked that Games Workshop had done their recent Combat Patrol release for Space Marines. This might be old news by all accounts, but have you seen the £95 Combat Patrol for Space Marines?
Is it all Terminators?
So it's 5 Terminators, Terminator Librarian, Terminator Captain, and 5 Pyro Marines, which is the thing there. But did you know, Phil, that for £65 you can get all of that and all the Tyranids in a starter set?
Ooh. Here's the thing. We talked about that Combat Patrol when it came out because we were talking about how it mostly has most of the Leviathan Space Marines in, but not all of them. But no, yeah, because obviously you've got the get starting boxes. Is it really all the same models?
Well, the only thing it's missing in the starter set, so basically the Librarian doesn't come in the £65 box set. The £65 box set is the 5 Terminators, the Terminator Captain, and the Pyro Marines. So you're missing the Librarian, but basically it's everything else and 2 units of Gaunts, 1 unit of Von Ryan Leapers, 1 winged Tyranid Prime, and the mower thing, the guy with the big maw. I forget the.
Okay. Not Neurolictor. I can't remember what it's called.
Anyway.
That's good value for money.
It's incredible, but
those always are. I guess buy that, sell the Tyranids, and try and buy the Librarian secondhand, maybe, or eventually it'll get a standalone release, and you've saved your money from not getting the Combat Patrol.
Well, or you could do the Ultimate Starter Set. The Ultimate Starter Set is £125, and that has all of the content of the £95 Combat Patrol. So you have the Librarian, the Terminators, the Captain, the Pyro Marines. Then you have all the NID stuff, plus everything I said before, the Von Line Leapers. But you also get a unit of 5. The Tyranids that have like the sentient guns and the blind shooters. Those guys, you remember them?
The new ones.
The new ones, yeah.
Yes, yeah. The little gaunt shooters, yeah.
So you get all that, and you get terrain. So you get the compound terrain stuff.
Okay.
So for £30 more than the Space Marine Combat Patrol, you get the Space Marine Combat Patrol, terrain, and Tyranids.
Oh, wow.
It's weird, isn't it? The reason I was bringing it up, though, and the thing that's sort of weird about it, is just that idea of like, sometimes with GW pricing, it's just a bit of a madness, isn't it? And, like, I understand like sprue production and the various variables that kind of contribute to this situation. Like, I completely understand the production process and all the rest of it, but it's like, how can you, in good consciousness, have a product that you're selling for £95 when for £30 less you get the greater majority of it and an entire, and Tyranids? It's like,
yeah, I think those starter sets have always kind of created those odd puzzling ones. I mean, I was talking to Sean about in Forge World shop, they've got the quite old models now, the Horus Heresy. I think it's I want to say Console and Praetor. It's the slightly more chaplain-y guy with the Crozius. And then the guy in the Terminator armor that was like part of the 2 characters from Betrayal of Calf. So they're quite old models, sort of the mini Marines, let's call them. Been around a while. There's a box set for those 2. They're like £32.50. Yet they were available, and admittedly this is always a bargain, in the Imperial magazine for £8. And it's just like, you just go, oh geez, that is a pricey box from Games Workshop.
I mean, I have to admit actually as well, because I did notice that with the Cruel Boys, because they had a Cruel Boys unit that I'm going to now struggle to remember the name of, but I did clock that one as well, and it was like a £35 model, and yeah, that was a £8 issue of the Age of Sigmar magazine, and that was a bit like, oh wow, like that's crazy, like. You know, but then that happens all too regularly. Like, I kind of excuse the magazine stuff because, like, the magazine occupies a specific space. But it's crazy to think that literally someone could walk into a Games Workshop store and buy Combat Patrol Space Marines, right? And but for less money, they could buy the starter set, and then for £24 on top, buy the Librarian. So basically, because they sell the Librarian separately, if you were to buy the Librarian plus the £65 set for £89, you could buy the from Games Workshop, you could buy Combat Patrol Space Marines plus all the Tyranid sculpts and dice and other paper parts. So yeah, it's just sort of wild to think that is something that is in the same shop. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah, I sort of feel like it's a bit of a weird thing that because I think when they were the Vanguard boxes, they were more like, was it like 50, 60 quid? And now they're closer to 100. I'm a bit like, I think these are they're putting too much in them and they're pricing them too high. I'd much rather them sort of be much cheaper. And even if that means they've got less stuff in them. That's what I'd prefer. Speaking of things that were expensive, we pre-ordered Legions Imperialis on the weekend. I discovered, oddly, that half of it isn't available via places like Element Games, which is where I got the main box from, because actually a load of it is online only, direct from Games Workshop. So the cards, which seem quite essential to buy, sold out immediately. They're £19 a set per faction. So if you're splitting the box and one person wants Space Marines and one person wants Solar Auxilia, that's £19 per person. However, if you were buying that box for yourself with the intention that it's Space Marines and Solar Auxilia, like allied units, then you've got to buy them both. And it's like, that's just exceedingly expensive. Likewise, I think the rulebook was like $32.50 or something similar. Again, direct only. Some of the training was direct only as well, but I think that was it. The tiles, the sort of gaming tiles were direct only as well, and they're quite expensive. And they soon add up, especially when you realise that it only covers what was it? Was it a 3x2? No, or maybe it's like a 1x3 in terms of the amount of tiles that it covers. But you would need 3 sets of them for the recommended play size of a 5x4. And then you end up with extra tiles because the number of the box doesn't equal the size of the ultimate game, which I guess is fine because you'll end up with spares so you can swap out and have a slightly modular gaming table. I just don't think they've done very well at selling some aspects of the game. They've not really. It's really hidden how many points a proper game is meant to be played at. It's really hidden what the optimal table size is. They've really hidden how many points the actual what you get in the box is actually. How much of that army is. If each faction's like completely balanced in terms of points, or is there a big discrepancy and stuff like that? So they have done some stuff where they haven't really advertised it particularly well, I think, which is a bit of a shame.
I agree with you. I think they've done a terrible job of promoting it. So much so I wasn't interested in it at all until you and I actually really kind of got into the weeds and started talking about it. Sincerely, like when we started episode 168, I was like, I don't care. I don't want this. I'm not interested. But actually, after talking about it a bit, I was like, actually, this sounds really fun. It looks really cool. I'll take a punt. Why not? But the thing is obviously we still don't have it yet. And I don't know what the depth is to it. The thing is, right, so I compare Legion Imperialis quite a lot to Dropship Commander. Did you ever play Dropship Commander, Phil?
I did not, no.
Do you know of Dropship?
Yes, I saw it about. It was quite big at the time. Was that around like sort of 7th edition 40k when lots of people weren't really into it and other systems were getting a bit more notoriety? Yeah,
so Dropship was during the kind of exciting period of time that was the 2012 through 2014 period of tabletop wargaming, where people's eyes were being opened to other alternatives to Games Workshop because Games Workshop had essentially dropped the ball on the communications. So they were being really, really kind of draconian in the way that they were treating the community. But also they were doing things that kind of upset people. I think, they were really on a downward trajectory in terms of how they were supporting their game systems, how they were supporting the community. So companies like Mantic and Warlord were really kind of coming into prevalence. But also there were other people like Fantasy Flight who were, starting to really kind of make inroads into that kind of miniature wargaming space. Fantasy Flight, as I remember, came to the fore with games like Dust, which actually was a really fun, like weird World War skirmish game with this whole emphasis on it's World War II, but they've got all sorts of crazy science and stuff. And
did they do Dust? Because Fantasy Flight did X-Wing. I didn't realise they did Dust as well.
Initially, yeah. So Dust ended up moving over into, I think, Warlord later on. So I think they started as a Fantasy Flight thing. And again, it was like pre-painted miniatures. So it was very similar to X-Wing and those kind of systems. But then they also had X-Wing and other things. So they started really kind of expanding that space. But anyway, amongst all of these systems and games, a small studio, I think they were based in I want to say they were based in somewhere like, like South London somewhere. I can't remember exactly where they were. It might have been, anyway, it doesn't matter. But Hawk War Games was the name of the studio, and they partnered up with, or they themselves created some really amazing like sculpts and systems, and they brought to life this thing, Dropship Commander. And the thing about that game was that obviously it was just so well developed as like a system, because the idea is that they really innovated in the way that they populated the board. So they had really beautiful city terrain, and basically the dropships were fighting through the city streets of these kind of sci-fi worlds, and they had these cardboard buildings that you could kind of pop out, and they had like really, really cool like detail to them, and you could buy like some resin components to further kind of accentuate the detail. But essentially what it meant is that they were really, really good at defining the play space. They were like, right, this is how you play the game. It has to be played in cities, and this is the kind of layouts that we want you to work with. And this is why this is important, because ultimately the game is all about controlling areas of the map. So it was all about like infantry going into buildings, sweeping, clearing, fighting against one another inside the buildings. And then on the streets, they were patrolled by the tanks and the dropships. And it was all about like, maneuvering in, dropping off your troops, them going and completing objectives, and you basically needing to kind of patrol their perimeter so as you're able to kind of evac them as soon as they've done what they needed to do. So it just had a lot of really amazing like tactical depth, and it was a really fun system. And I see a lot of that in the concepts of Imperialis. I think Imperialis could embody a lot of those same ideas and bring a lot of that stuff to life in really fun, interesting ways. But I just think they've done a terrible job of communicating it. I don't really think anyone truly understands what it is they're even getting into. I think they just think that they're going to be playing a game where it's just basically, I'm going to try and kill you and you're going to try and kill me, and that's the game. It's just a tit for tat, blow the hell out of each other on a big epic scale type game. But I think there's more to it than meets the eye. And I think ultimately one of the fatal flaws that Games Workshop has with their way their community works at the moment is that they just go into the old playbook, which is, let's send stuff to these influencers, these people on Instagram, they'll post pictures of the miniatures painted, but we won't actually do anything to explain what this game is. Like, sure, people like Guerrilla Miniatures and other people have done like Let's Plays.
But he did quite a good one.
He did a really good one, but I'm still not really that clued into how this game scales up. You know what I mean? It's like it's still very... it's still very nebulous.
I do get that, because I was looking around on Saturday, like pre-order day, let's see what content there is on the socials and YouTube and stuff, and there really isn't a lot. And I think Ash from Guerrilla Miniatures has done the best job at trying to promote it in comparison to anyone else. And there's a couple of like painting ones out there, but beyond that, there doesn't seem like there's a lot. Like, even to the point where, of course, speaking to Sean, because he's massive into Adeptus Titanicus. He wanted to get the some of the bases to rebase his Adeptus Titanicus army, because he's like, oh yeah, the bases are different. That's annoying. Want to get all the new ones. And he was a bit frustrated that A, they'd all sold out. B, they don't do the small, I guess it's like 23 millimeter bases, the standard ones for the troops, because they're the ones that you need for armigers, and they don't sell them, basically. So I was a bit annoyed about that. But also, it's like, so you get the cards and you get the rule book, but it's like, is that all the rules for all the units that are in the game, or will there be, they previewed things like Land Raiders, drop pods with like the shield generator and stuff like that. It's like, the rules for those things in the current rule book, I don't actually know. Are they in the cards that you get? Because it feels like the cards should cover every unit in the game, like, when you get a deck of, the Space Marine data sheets and stuff. Or are they coming out later on, either via like supplements, White Dwarf, or whatever, or free rules online? They've not communicated that. if you've got an Adeptus Titanicus army that you want to play in this game, where are the rules for that? Because there's not a deck of cards like there is for Solo Auxilia or the Legion stuff. So are they in the rule book again? Hasn't been explained. I mean, it is a 2-week period, so maybe as this podcast comes out, they will preview maybe more Adeptus Titanicus stuff. I don't know. It seems really odd and it's a bit confusing.
I just think they've done an abysmal job of it. I think I genuinely think that Legion Imperialis is going to wilt on the vine. I think it probably could be a good game. And I'm willing to put the work in on it myself to discover that for myself. But I'm not overly invested in really kind of getting into it because I think ultimately, they're just going to... I just think it's very unlikely that people are going to engage with it. People who play Warhammer 40,000 for the most part probably aren't that bothered about it. People who play Heresy are kind of invested in Heresy. I mean, you said a really prolific thing that stuck in my mind, which was, when we were talking about this, you were talking about this could be a great opportunity for you to express your desire to have a Sons of Horus army, something you've always wanted. You basically were like, yeah, I'm going to use this as a kind of way of expressing that on the tabletop. But then you said to me the other day, it's not the same though, is it? I should really do it like in the proper, 28 millimeter scale. Like I should have a proper Sons of Horus army. But again, I think that sticks with me because again, it sort of speaks to the notion that this is lesser. And I think that is the way it's going to be viewed by a lot of people. It certainly was by me until I sort of decided to take the plunge. And, I just think it's a shame because I think ultimately, it seems like what someone in the specialist game department is trying to do is build something that's actually quite interesting. And maybe, just maybe, it could be a really fun system. It seems like it has the aspects to it that could be really fun. But the thing we need to kind of understand is what is the line between what you get in that box and what it needs to be in terms of the scale of the game? Where is the tactical depth of it? How does it work like terrain? What are the things we're trying to do? What makes it interesting? And again, I'm going back to the Drop Zone Commander guys. That game made a lot of sense and it was clearly communicated. And everything they did was talk about the synergy between terrain, miniatures, mission. Like those 3 elements were really, really well communicated. I think the thing is that in all sincerity, right? Sure, you get an easy clickbait, simple win when you go, hey, painter, here's some stuff, paint it, right? Like, sure, fine. But this is a game launch. This is a new product. This is an entirely new way to play the thing. And none of those painters who are flexing on Instagram, oh, look at me, I'm special, I got a box, are actually taking the time to explain to you what the heck this thing is. And ultimately, I think it's to its detriment. I think GW have kind of demonstrated with the release of Legion Imperialis that actually, if it's not within their usual playbook, they're really terrible at promoting games. Like, I think they're just doing a really poor job of it.
Because they haven't explained what the missions are like, whether they're really narrative, how many you get in the game, I don't think. I mean, maybe if you read the description of the box, it probably would have it there, I guess. Horus Heresy is normally quite narratively led, so I hope that would be the case. I hope they do campaign books that are Istvan, Drop Site Massacre, Betrayal at Calf, almost go through the classics like the Black Library books, the Black books were doing before, because it feels like current regular scale Horus Heresy isn't quite doing that at the moment. It's sort of jumping around all over the place, doing Siege of Cophonia, Siege of Terror and stuff like that. So it'd be nice to have a bit more a released in sync with the time period. So start at the very beginning of Horus Heresy and sort of work your way through it. That'd be cool. I think some of the reasons why it might not do well is the price of it. Like the miniatures are quite expensive. Every box is pretty much 30 quid. So one Thunderhawk is 30 quid, 10 Rhinos is 30 quid, all the infantry as a box is 30 quid. And it's that's not cheap. Especially when it's maybe 3 or 4 tanks. That feels like a lot of money to be putting down on what seems like very little plastic. Arguably,
like-
it's very detailed. It's very beautiful, and like the Bane blade is, I think I counted it was like 25 or something pieces. It's like a lot.
But yeah, I mean, mate, those miniatures, because again, we saw them in reality, they are minuscule. Like they are, I don't think people are really fully aware because of how this stuff is promoted online. They are tiny.
Yeah,
I
would say the infantry is, if you look at your smallest finger and you half the height of your fingernail on your little pinky, they're probably about that height. They are pretty small. Because I saw like the day before there was loads going online, especially within like 3D printing communities. Like they were taking some of the photos because basically some of the infantry have like these, they don't have undercuts on them because they're single part miniatures, which is the thing we were speculating in the last episode. If the infantry are multi-part, they're single part, you pop them off the sprue. But what it means is because there's no undercuts, basically between the bolter and the shoulder pad is a big block of plastic. There's which can look quite ugly, and in the photos people were posting online, on a couple of miniatures, it looks really horrendous because the distance of it is actually quite noticeable. However, that's because they've done some really dynamic poses on some of them. But when you see them in the cabinet at Warhammer World from the same sort of distance where you would look at a single miniature, so quite up close, they're still quite far away. They're still so small. That tiny piece of plastic that shouldn't be there if it was a normal miniature is barely noticeable. And it's only noticeable, I would say, it's only barely noticeable on 2 or 3 miniatures where it's most prominent. Most miniatures don't actually have it because of the posing. And it's only a couple that do. So I think a lot of people have gotten het up about it, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'll just 3D print my armies because it's cheaper and it's better detail. But it's like, you can't do that on an industrial scale, especially with plastic injection molding, unless you went for 2 parts. So maybe you could have done infantry model plus bolter, but no one would enjoy putting those together, I don't think.
Mate, I couldn't imagine, based on the scale of those, good Lord, not a chance. Like they are, to put it in context, right? The base size is the same as like a a grot, right? Like it's
a 23 millimeter, I think. Yeah, that's the standard.
Smaller than a grot type base, and thinner as well. And the miniatures on it, like honestly, like the total height of the base of infantry isn't probably a great deal more than a standard 40k base. You know, it's like they are minuscule to the extent that, like, when I'm looking at them going, right, okay, so a unit of troops in this game is going to be 5 of these bases or 6 of these bases, right? Maybe 7, whatever the number is. I don't know. Say it's 7 bases, right? Like that's the footprint of a thing. I'm like, well, God, how many of those am I going to need? What is the scale of this game? That's the thing I'm really interested in discovering.
Yeah, so the average game, according to one article I found on Warhammer Community, is 3,000 points. Ash Baker's Guerrilla Miniature Wargaming video, get starting video, was 1,000 points. That wasn't the full.
No, it was 300 points, Phil.
Oh, was it? Was it only 300?
300.4.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that wasn't the full box set. So maybe the full box set is about 1,000 points then. Maybe that was
with the two Titans in it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that was it. It was something like that. So you're right, even then it's like it's not been particularly clear what things are worth and how big armies should look. I think, but here's the thing, I think people will have a token infantry, a couple of units. But I think most people beyond the starter box set of infantry will just be going for vehicles or Titans because that's the fun stuff that people want to see. I think most people will just be because like the Predators are gorgeous, the Lehman Russes and the Malkador tanks all look great. Like that's what people I think we'll want. I'd rather lean into tanks personally than some of the infantry stuff. The infantry stuff looks cool. No, and yeah, I think my issue with Sons of Horus, in terms of the point you were making earlier, is like I just don't think Sons of Horus paints up particularly well at that scale. I think a lot of the other legions just look a bit better for the color schemes. I still think I'll go into Sons of Horus though, because that's the army I want. So, and I think once some of the more interesting units come out, like the Dreadclaws, for example, I'd love to get some of those, and then I can do my, tip of a spear style force, which is what I've always imagined for Sons of Horus. Then I can lean into that. But yeah, I like the idea of like having, tank formations and stuff like that as well. That'd be really good.
I figure if I'm doing anything with it, I'm gonna do the Solar Auxilia, build up that force, and then just spam knights and that'll be fine. I think spam knights and planes, that'll be fine.
Yeah, like there was a giant knight force in the Forge World shop that looked really stunning.
Incredible.
And I can't remember what it's called. It's like the biggest Questoris, no, Cerastus Knight, the one with like the double volcano cannons.
Oh yeah,
That actually looks like a really beautiful miniature in that scale. Whereas the 40k version, I'm not a huge fan of, but yeah, on that scale, it made me. I was literally going to buy one, but I was told they're all out of stock, and literally all the basically knight stuff's gone out of stock. And I assume that's because it's popular, because people have just bought them, but also because they're reboxing them all, because they're now shifting. I presume Adeptus Titanicus is a game that's getting phased out and is just going to become. Yeah. Here's the thing: you can still just support it from a rule set point of view, but because all the models are now just shifting over to Legion Imperialis anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the way that's going, isn't it? It's they're not long for this world. The Titanicus rules, or at least, well, the rules will be hopefully supported, because there's a really passionate community of people who love that game. Again, I understand that old James Hewitt did a great job of writing those rules, or rather, by his own admittance, did a great job of constructing the ideas around those rules, but maybe wasn't his best work in terms of writing it down. But there's a lot to love in Titanicus. But we'll see what happens with it, mate. And again, not to kind of be too down on, I think all the kind of influencers and people who got free copies and did the best they could to kind of promote it in their own way is great. And I think, seeing the painted miniatures is cool, but I think with a system like this, we need a lot more kind of work to be done to try and actually understand the scale and size of it. And I don't think it's enough just to put that on we did a bat rep on Warhammer Plus. It's like, it feels like, this is the kind of thing where, they should be out there doing demo games and showing it off and, building up a lot more kind of hype and excitement around it, and, being a lot more kind of proactive with it. Because I think when you play games in the scale of Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Heresy, Warcry, Kill Team, etc., the game is quite understandable, and you kind of, to a certain extent, are relatively forgiving of whether the specialist game like a Warcry or a Kill Team is especially good, because you're just looking at it through the lens of the kind of main system. You're going, Underworlds isn't that much fun, but I don't care because I want those miniatures for my AOS army. So, the kind of main vehicle is the main systems. But, I can't use my Legion Imperialis miniatures for anything else but Legion Imperialis. So, I want to know why that's worth spending that money on.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why I wanted to dive in and buy the box set. But it actually, the more I'm researching the game, the more I'm reading about it, the more little nuggets I'm putting together, it seems the further away we are from kind of reality anyway. It's like, when you buy the AOS box set, if I go to Element Games and I go on to Age of Sigmar and I click on the kind of Forces of Order, where's the gang started with Age of Sigmar, here we go. And I click on the expensive box. Where's the expensive box? I'll just go for starter set Harbingers. What do I get in that? I get a load of stuff. I mean, it's a long way off of a full, like army, but it's not, like, I don't know. You sort of feel like if you buy like the main box set of Age of Sigmar, like the £100 one or whatever it is, you probably only need to like layer in a few other things, and then you've got like 2,000 point forces which can face off against each other. Feels like with this, it's like if I've basically got a tenth of what I need to play a full scale game, or what is intended to be a full scale game.
Yeah, it does feel like if you want to do the full 3,000 point games, it's gonna cost a lot just to buy all the units, basically, which is gonna be a real shame if that is the case. Because and I hope the game scales. I'm sure it will, where you can do smaller games as well as a bit like 40k. You got the 1,000 points, 2,000 points, 3,000 points games. Hopefully it will scale like that, so you don't need to have those big 3,000 point games. Although I guess that's what you're there for, really, to do like giant apocalypse size games. It does feel like there's a lot of niche elements to it. Like there's a lot of weapon options on the vehicles, whether that's the big guns on the turrets or it's the sponson weapons, and I was sort of expecting it to be a bit more streamlined in terms of it's just a tank that's got a really good gun that you're rolling one dice for. Doesn't really matter what the variant of that thing is. So it's not as streamlined, I think, as I was perhaps initially thinking it would be, because it's unlike the old 40k Epic game that came out, which I think was a lot more streamlined. So not Epic, Apocalypse, which was using the old Epic rules. Whereas this feels, the rules visually look a lot more like Horus Heresy, and they've got a lot of, depth to them.
Yeah. But anyway, there we go. Exciting to see what comes around the corner for it. I'm hopeful that it actually turns out to be something fun. I'm just more excited by the prospect of smashing out the collection and, trying it out and seeing if there's something worth investing in long term with it. But as I say, my main project between now and end of January is going to be getting these Cruel Boys done. They're going to be my main squeeze for the foreseeable. So I'm looking forward to getting those done, and then see what the new year brings, I suppose. But given that we've now been talking for over an hour and 15 minutes in just the outro section, Phil, it's probably time we say goodbye, wouldn't you say?
Why ever not?
Why ever not? Unless you had another topic that you wanted to address, or is that you done?
You were talking about your projects that you were working on, so could indulge me and allow me to talk about the projects.
I'd love to indulge you, Phil. Please, come on, tell me more.
Thank you very much. Basically, I've got one goal for the entire year. Basically, I applied to No Retreats, which was a tournament or more of an event in Gibraltar. I've been several times before. You've got to apply and be accepted. I did get in this year. Well, I got in for next year with my Thunder Warrior army. So I've got to build 2,000 points and get them painted of Thunder Warriors. That is a tall ask for me. But I managed to paint 1,000 points of Nighthaunt in a month. So anything's possible this year. We're in a brave new world where I can paint things speedily.
It can be done, Phil. It can be done. I mean, it's only, 30-something models?
I think it's around, 32 models. Also, our good friend, I don't know if we can talk about that. There's a Horus Heresy event in August that I want to go to with the same army, basically. And I've worked out that even though that's 2,500 points, it's basically the same model count. And because I can sort of marry up the units. About a month or 2 months ago, I created a spreadsheet of all the infantry units for Custodes, which is the army I'm playing them as, for Horus Heresy, and their 40k equivalents, and the war gear options, because there are slight nuances between them. And basically, I had to go, which one's compatible in every single system? It basically means if there's a Horus Heresy unit, like the Quilon Terminators, I'll take them over the 40k ones, because the 40k ones aren't compatible in the 30k game. And that's the only unit I think where actually them and the jet bikes have different size bases between the 40k counterparts and the Horus Heresy ones. That's the only issue really there. So yeah, and it's quite a slow project in terms of how long it takes me to convert up each mini. So there's a lot to do. I think I've done about 9 models so far. So I'm a third of the way through the project. And I've got, like 11, 12 months? About 11 months to go.
Well, for September?
Yeah.
No, you got more like 10, mate.
Oh, gosh. Okay. But best get on it, basically. Time is running out already.
Yeah. Mate, well, I mean, it's awesome that you got in. Again, obviously, you're a alumni, so to speak, aren't you? So you get a lot more leniency than others.
I mean, maybe. I've been, 3 times before. I haven't been for about 2 or 3 years. It's been a while since my last one.
I was fine with the no retreat thing. That I think because obviously Pardo, he wants it to be like an exclusive thing where you earn the spot. But he also obviously needs to sell tickets and he needs reliable people. So every time, people apply who haven't been before, he is taking a relative risk because he's obviously figuring out whether that individual is going to be able to pay and honor their word. Because, I mean, these events aren't cheap, right? I'm not suggesting that they're not value for money. They feel a bit too expensive for my.
Yeah, I mean that's why I haven't been for the last few years because I'm just like I can't afford it. Whereas this time around, I was like I'm going to treat myself, basically.
Yeah, no, good on you, mate. I mean that's the thing. I mean ultimately, Phil from RFW attends a lot of the Heresy ones now. He's a very regular feature there. Did the 40k ones. He loves them, right? Like he rates them very highly and. Considers them some of the best events available. And, I think if you were to ask him, it's incredible value in his opinion. He has a great time. And I think at the end of the day, that's something you can't ignore. But in my opinion, it does seem, I think it's not unreasonable to assert the fact that there is obviously a barrier to entry from a pricing perspective. Because not only have you got to fork out how much was the tickets these time? Like 300 quid nearly?
Yeah, I thought it was 2 something, but it's around 200-300 for the tickets. It comes with a lot of all-inclusive stuff, like extra trips, T-shirt, goodie bag, a couple of dinners and stuff like that. It doesn't include the hotel, which is the biggest expense, followed by probably the flights. So it does add up to a lot for effectively a long weekend. You can do,
right?
Say, Friday to Sunday evening if you wanted to go for like the minimum amount of time, I think. But a lot of people go from, say, like a Wednesday or a Thursday to Monday. So it ends up being, quite a while.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing, right? Like, so Pardo has to sort of cultivate an audience that are obviously... reaching a certain standard from a hobby perspective and also from a kind of people perspective. Because one of the things that they try and cultivate is a collaborative and, kind of celebratory community that want to kind of share that joint love of, playing, collecting, engaging in Warhammer, which is really great. But at the same time, obviously, he also needs to know that people are going to be able to drop that money and they're, going to do honor their word. Because often I find with Pardo, what's happening with him a lot lately is that it always feels like he ends up in these really like weird scenarios where at the 11th hour he's having to fill slots and it's like, oh God, like, I went through this, approval process and I gifted the opportunity for this individual to give me this money and attend this event. And now they don't want to, so now I've got to sort of scramble around. So it feels like there is definitely a kind of cohort of reliable, consistent patrons that will support him. And I feel like you've probably earned that reputation now, which is great for you because it obviously means that I think when you put in a pitch where you're going, I'm ambitiously going to shoot to do this, I think he's more likely to take your application seriously because of your proven track record of actually forking out the money and turning up. Whereas I imagine the average punter, if they turned around without that personal reputation or a personal rapport and said, "Yeah, I reckon I could get something done by September. What do you think?" He might be a little bit more like,
yeah,
"No,"
possibly
because you're not a proven
because
element.
normally you apply and you're off in 6 months. Like the window between applying and going is not a year. So I think this time he's much more willing to accept applications of, here's a unit or two that I've done, I've either finished or I've built, and here's the track record of stuff I've done before, so you know what the end result should roughly be like. But ultimately it's a project that I'm working on for the whole period. Previous times when I've applied, it's always been, this is pretty much my finished army, or the majority of my army's finished, and I'm going to add a couple of units in between now and then. I think in terms of dropouts, actually a lot in the last few years have been due to like COVID issues, especially. Sometimes it's just travel, like flights get cancelled, or someone's got an emergency or a work thing that they suddenly can't get out of. And that's why those things have cropped up. It's not really been because people haven't paid. But I do think there's probably an element of, because before how it used to happen is you would apply, you would be sent the kind of fancy gift box with the gamer tags in them and stuff. And that was your invite. And once you had received that, you then would pay. Whereas now it's done, so you sort of pay up front, and then the gift boxes get sent out afterwards. So that bit is, I think, the streamlined bit in terms of making sure people are paid up front and stuff. And that sort of makes sense. Because I can imagine some people have just applied on a whim and not looked at like the costs involved of the tickets and the flights and the hotel and stuff like that. And then only later they're like, oh, okay, now I've got an in, it's come a lot more real. And maybe that's been an issue.
Again, I'm very dubious about the way that Pardo and his team judge people's hobby, capabilities. But I wouldn't ever put myself in a position, I wouldn't elevate myself to pass that judgment in that kind of capacity, because I don't feel like I'm qualified to make those judgments, because I'm not someone who can paint to that standard. I'm not someone who, is able to, judge what is the difference between, the best paint jobs and inferior paint jobs. And equally, I also don't like the notion that there's this kind of clout chasing element to it all, where it always feels like there's just been this desire from them to really ingratiate themselves with all of these content creators. It always feels a bit disingenuous to me. Or maybe I'm just saying that out of sour grapes because I've never been invited, but then I only ever applied for it once, and I just sort of found the whole thing quite, not humiliating, but just quite it just seemed really kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's because I myself have my own kind of personal demons to bear in terms of my own sense of self-worth, etc. But maybe I need to be a bit more humble. But my point was, I just always find those aspects of No Retreat really weird. Not to take away from people that love it, and I love the fact that you get in there and do it and you're passionate about it, because it infuses you and gets you invested in the hobby, and I think that's great. And I do think what they're doing is good in some regards, but I often find there's just a few little bits that I get a bit about. But whatever, people are having fun. Good
enough.
On them.
I mean, I do disagree with you on your, the fact that you need to be a good painter to judge painting. I don't think that's the case. Even Tom, who does the RFW ones, he does his painting awards and judges it himself. And he's not a award-winning heavy metal painter or anything like that. He's a good enough painter, but it's and a lot of it is personal taste. And I think, the reason why I probably first got to go to No Retreat was because Pardo personally really liked my style that I painted my Krieg army in. And I'm sure other people in the team who were voting didn't like my style. But maybe Pardo did, and that's how I got in, basically. So I think, personal choice, and, we can all look at painting and know what's good and what isn't, but from a personal preference, but you might not have the technical knowledge to either do it yourself or to know why it's good. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, and I agree with that statement, although I will say that there is definitely a difference between judging best painted at an event in an event capacity. Admittedly, you're rewarding overall best painted for the event, blah, blah, blah. So, like, if people are rocked up to a tournament and you've got best painted reward, there is a subjectivity to that, and there is obviously an element of judgment, and ultimately you put yourself in a situation where you're judging best painted, so you feel like you can assert that position. I think the difference with this is that it's kind of it's kind of embedded.
Well,
it's
for entry to the event, so I can understand that. And to me, even like when I was applying and wasn't getting in, I was like, oh god, like A, that's really annoying and a bit sad.
Yeah.
But B, it's like, oh god, the standard's so high. It's just like, oh god, like am I never going to be able to go again, sort of thing. So it's nice that I can do, and hopefully that is because maybe they are along the standard. I think the thing that sort of frustrated me slightly with that painting process is it's fine to get a commission army painted for you to a high standard, yet you get the reward of going along with it just because you've had the money to pay it. And maybe their point of view is, well, that is the way that you can come to our events. But then if it's an event that's celebrating the hobby, someone who's just paid to get an army painted isn't, maybe a hobby boot winner sort of attitude. I don't think that part of it has never sat well with me. It's like you're either rewarding great painters and great, people that convert their armies and stuff. But if you can just pay for it, it doesn't really, that aspect of it doesn't really work.
I think that's always, I think that's ultimately, if you are going to host an event where entry to the event is awarded as a consequence or as a part of a judgment process, that process is always going to be judged, because ultimately, if you are going to elevate yourself and try and attempt to have people who want to come to your event held to a high standard, you yourself will be judged to a high standard as well. And I think that's where I kind of come from with this stuff. It's like, it's an interesting position. It's an interesting pedestal to put yourself upon, to be able to basically say, we arbitrate what is good and we will judge you and your value based on what, your competency at painting and other things. And again, it's not a perfect science. They definitely are fallible human beings who have personal preferences. There are definitely people who will get in because of relationships, because obviously that's how people work. But I think that's always been my thing with the no retreat scene. It's always just been a little bit, I don't know. It has struck me sometimes as a little bit of a fallacy sometimes, but at the same time, people who engage in it really love it.
Once you get in, it's glorious, and everyone is really nice and lovely.
Exactly.
You just got to get through that golden gates to get there, basically.
That's it. It's
and if you're not a great painter, you can just go to one of the generic grand tournament events that they do, because that has no painting sort of entry requirement other than the bare minimum that most tournaments have.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, look, this is the thing. I'm not attempting to poo-poo the good people over at No Retreat. I just think, I just always sort of feel like I don't know. I have a weird sense of obligation to point out my anxiety around the way that they conduct themselves in that sense. But at the end of the day, people like yourself really love and value the events, and yourself and Big Phil from RFW are big advocates of it.
Honestly, the stuff they did for the Horus Heresy one that Phil went to looked amazing. I think in the lead up to it, they did an entire kind of weird campaign map where they split into teams, and the teams all talk to each other. They moved around a board, and basically that digital board determined who they were playing in their first game, and then maybe what bonuses they got. And then in the final game on Sunday, they did like a big free-for-all. It was like, I guess, like a 10v10 super match, which was like a first for them. And then they did, as you say, the pageantry of the like kind of intro mission videos from like your team's character / leader and stuff. So yeah, they put a lot of effort into that Horus Heresy one. I hope, fingers crossed, that they do a similar level for the 40k one, but I don't know if they will, because I think with the Horus Heresy ones, it's always narrative. But yeah, I hope we get a similar level of effort and enticement and excitement for the 40k one.
Mate, you definitely should do. I mean, you know, that's the thing. For all of my misgivings and all those statements made, I think, you know, you can't deny the fact that they are obviously doing really, really good stuff. So, you know, more power to them is all I can say, really. I think ultimately, I think it's a really cool thing that like people are really trying to push the envelope and do fun events. And again, you know, there's never really been a concern from my perspective that what they're doing isn't to a high standard, and that the events are probably some of the best Warhammer events that you can engage in. But I just had a slight gripe about the kind of entry requirements, and also, you know, as I say, just a sense of betrayal or frustration that I'm just not enough for them. That's what it is, you see. Not that I've applied in ages, but you know, I applied once and I was just expecting them to roll out the red carpet.
That was it.
Didn't.
Yeah.
After they didn't, I was just like, well, you're dead to me. Screw you. You can't cancel me. I'm Henry Sellers. That's an obscure reference, but the two people that got it will hopefully have appreciated
I'm
it.
sure they will.
Anyway, any more?
No, that was it. You took what probably would have been a 10-minute talk to a 35-minute angry rant. So let's call it there.
Was it an angry rant? I wasn't trying to be angry. I was just trying to be honest.
Bit of both.
Bit of both. Anyway, much love to the No Retreat crowd. We value your patronage. Please continue listening. Don't abandon us. Phil's still going. He loves you, don't you, Phil?
I do. Of course I do.
Exactly. That's the dynamic that we have. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Over time